At what constitutes success, or is the government planning an attack on ambition? At 8, the Conservatives want police to investigate more stolen phones, bikes, laptops, cars, pledging to solve 36,000 more crimes a year. Have you been the victim of one of them? And this hour,
we are seeing another episode of wash, rinse, repeat.
Iranian opposition backer Khosrow Isfahani telling LBC there's no end in sight to the conflict. Is Donald Trump's war about to propel the UK's economy into recession?
On your radio, on the LBC app, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 7 o'clock, the US has dismissed reports that Gianni Infantino is seeking support from Donald Trump to save his job. Washington says there are no plans for discussions. The English, Swedish and Welsh FAs have all withdrawn their support of Mr Infantino after he tried to sell off stakes in the World Cup. Former FA Chief Executive Mark Palios says the FA had to work with caution.
They had to be very careful as to what they were going to do, and they weren't isolated. And with all the other teams in UEFA stepping forward and saying they were going to boycott the World Cup, I think that gave them the opportunity to stand up and be counted.
Donald Trump has accused Iran of being duplicitous by claiming there are no plans for talks with the US. The American president says they've privately begged for negotiations. He used the meeting as the reason for cancelling attacks he'd threatened on Iran over the weekend. Reform UK says its plan to intercept small boat crossings in the Channel complies with international law. The party proposes ordering the Royal Navy to help out if it wins the next general election. Tens of thousands of doses of the meningitis B vaccine have been given to young people in England who are starting university this autumn. Pharmacy bosses are reporting high demand since the one-off jab programme began. It follows multiple meningitis outbreaks, including at the University of Kent, that left 3 teenagers dead. Pharmacy owner Mike Hewitson says 2 doses are needed before someone's immunised.
Those 2 doses need to be at least 4 weeks apart. So we would encourage people to have their first dose as soon as possible, and then they've got a little bit of leeway into the early part of September to get the second dose.
And provisional statistics show England and Wales saw their driest July on record this year. Southern England experienced its driest month ever recorded. 19 counties across England recorded effectively no rainfall for the whole of July. In the city, the FTSE 100 has closed down 10 points at 10,857. The pound buys $1.34 and €1.16. LBC weather, heavy rain moves into the north and west tonight. Thunder in Northern Ireland, then drier with clear spells elsewhere, a low of 10. Showers and a risk of lightning in Scotland tomorrow. Elsewhere, sunny spells with patchy clouds and scattered showers, highs of 30 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Amelia Cox.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Simon Marks.
Good evening, everybody. I'm in for Ian Dale tonight, all of this week and all of next week too. It is great to be with you this evening, and don't forget that in addition to listening to us on the radio or on your mobile, you can also watch us on the LBC official YouTube channel, on the LBC app or on Global Player. Coming up tonight, we're going to talk in this order about the economy, the police and our schools. After the news at 9, your views on changes that are in the works to the curriculum choices that kids in school face. Education Secretary Lucy Powell says a schooling straitjacket is leaving at least 1 million youngsters behind. Do you agree with her? We'll talk about that after the news at 9. At 8, the Tories want police to go back on the knocker to track down stolen phones, bikes, laptops and cars. They reckon 36,000 more crimes could be solved every year. Were you the victim of one of them? But this hour, the war in Iran, it could prove to be the depth charge that explodes under Andy Burnham's hopes for the UK's economic revival. The accountancy giant EY, formerly known, of course, as Ernst & Young, said today the UK should be bracing for a recession next year if the Strait of Hormuz remains closed. And at the moment, that seems like a stone-cold certainty.
It was going to be a massive attack. It was going to be an attack that would have been by far the biggest attack since World War II. But they've asked us not to do it. They said, please don't do it. And their neighbors said that too. And so we're just going to see whether or not we can make a deal.
That was President Trump speaking last night on Air Force One, stepping back from the brink once again of launching what he had vowed would be a massive attack on Iran that would even this time around have turned the lights off across Tehran. How many times have we been here? Well, I was going to put together a montage of all the times, more than 40 of them so far, when President Trump has promised that a deal to end the war is in the works. But luckily, CNN did it for me, starting with the US leader's first promise as long ago as the halcyon days of March the 23rd.
They want to make a deal, and we are very willing to make a deal.
Well, I think we're going to end it. I can't tell you for sure when they want to make a deal so badly. You have no idea how badly they want to make a deal.
They want to make a deal so badly. I do see a deal in Iran.
We were very close to a deal. I think it's close to over, yeah. I mean, I view it as very close to over.
It's looking very good that we're going to make a deal with Iran, and it's going to be a good deal. This process should go very quickly. We're going to end that war very quickly. They want to make a deal so badly. We think we're close to a deal, and that's okay. We're in the final throes of what will be a very, very good deal.
The final throes, he said. More than 40 times he's done that. And guess what? There ain't going to be a deal because Iran can see him coming. By his own admission, he's now running low on weaponry. The Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman talked him down over the weekend, warning Trump that countries in the region want him to cool it with the inflammatory rhetoric. It was described as an unusually candid discussion between the two leaders. Regional neighbours of Iran fear that if Trump launches that biggest attack since World War II, they will be in the firing line as the Iranians retaliate. Now, this hour, we're going to talk not about where the war goes, but about what it all means for us here at home in the UK, because EY predicted today that Britain's GDP could slow to 0.5% this year and could even shrink next year if the conflict continues. They say inflation could reach 6.4% by the end of this year, just in time for Christmas if oil and energy prices continue to surge. And that should be grabbing the attention of all of us. If you're the Chancellor of the Exchequer, John Healey, the assumptions that you are making today, August the 3rd, about the possible resolution of the war may look very different by the time we get to his budget in October or by December. What can we do as a country to inoculate ourselves against the American president's proven inability to bring peace to the region? Should we be doing a bit more? Should we be doing more, a bit like the Saudi Crown Prince did, directly to tell Donald Trump that, never mind all the guff about drilling for oil in the North Sea, the fastest path to economic improvement here in the UK would be a lasting peace that gets the Strait of Hormuz reopened? Is our economy now entirely at the mercy of an American president who cannot find his way out of a war that I suspect privately he bitterly regrets ever having started? Call me now at 0345 6060 973. It's the same number for WhatsApp that it is for the telephone. You can also text me at 84850. Should we not be prioritising sending a very clear message to the American president that he needs to find a way of really focusing on the diplomacy and the complexity of the negotiation track in order to wrap this war up so that our economy here can be protected from the recessionary ravages that EY is warning lie just on the horizon? Joining me to kick our conversation off this evening is Duncan Weldon, economist and former economic policy advisor to the Labour Party. He's the author of the book Blood and Treasure, The Economics of Conflict from the Vikings to Ukraine. Mr. Weldon, it's great to have you on the programme this evening because we, of course, are going to talk about the economics of conflict in Iran. And for the UK, it is beginning to look like those economics are a very perilous problem for Andy Burnham and John Healey. Good evening to you.
Good evening. No, it's definitely a perilous problem, and I think those numbers, that report today you mentioned from EY, suggesting a potential big spike in inflation, prices rising faster, a big slowdown in economic growth, maybe even a recession. None of that is unlikely if the Strait of Hormuz, this crucial waterway, remains closed. Of course, the big question is it going to reopen? Because, the outlook could change very, very quickly if oil and natural gas starts flowing again.
But, as you will obviously be aware, Mr. Weldon, this conflict started on February the 28th. It's now August the 3rd. All negotiations to try and get the Strait of Hormuz reopened have so far failed. Currently, the Iranians and the Omanis are discussing it among themselves. But when Oman a few weeks ago suggested that, like Iran, it might charge per vessel tolls or service fees, the American president even threatened to attack Oman, which, of course, is an American ally. I mean, we do have prudently to assume that normal service in the Strait, normal traffic, is not going to resume anytime soon, don't we? I mean, John Healey will be presumably factoring all of that into his decision-making process.
Oh, absolutely. And, we should also be absolutely clear. If Donald Trump was to sign another deal with Iran tomorrow, and both sides were to say the Strait is open, that there wouldn't be an immediate relief of this pressure. For a start, it's quite a brave oil tanker captain who's going to, steam up the Strait tomorrow, not knowing if it's going to close again the day afterwards. And it's not just that. Lots of these oil-producing regions, such as Iraq, Kuwait, they've had 5 months of not being able to supply their product to the market. They have run out of storage capacity and had to close down wells. Now, oil wells, it's not just like flipping a light switch on and off. It takes several weeks to get these things back up and running. That's before we even start to take account of any of the damage to facilities during the war. So Qatar, which is a big provider of liquefied natural gas, quite early on in the conflict, towards the end of March, beginning of April, its largest LNG, liquid nitrified gas export facility, took a hit from an Iranian drone. They think that's reduced their export capacity by 17%, and it will take them years to repair it. So there is no immediate fix.
So what would you be advising the government to do, both in terms of the economic plans that it's making, but also perhaps in the messaging behind the scenes that it's presenting to the American government?
I think the messaging behind the scenes to the American government, I think from Britain and from all of the countries of the EU, who are all very exposed to this international energy price shock, should be to reiterate that we are staring down the barrel of a very serious economic crisis. Now, it sometimes feels a little bit like economists have tried wolf on this, because we've had the Strait closed for 5 months. We keep being told we're going to see really serious impacts very, very quickly. Now, there's been a lot of pain. Anyone that's filled up their car recently knows there's quite a lot of pain out there and a lot of price pain. Things haven't been as bad as they might have been for a couple of really big factors. One is that China, the surprise of almost everyone, has been able to really cut the amount of oil it's been importing for the last few months, running down stockpiles, which seem to be much larger than anyone expected. Now, China can't keep doing that forever. There is a limit to even the size of Chinese stockpiles. And also, there's been a lot of sort of running down of oil that was already in the system, that was in tanks, that was being stored, of gas that was stored. But all of these levels of inventory are now getting dangerously low. So we are at the point when we do need resolution in the coming weeks, not the coming months.
And so when do you think that biting point comes? I mean, I was sitting in this chair back in June and at the time was interviewing a guest on the programme who was saying, we were 3 weeks away from food shortages because of the fertiliser that passes through the Strait of Hormuz, and that its inability to traffic that waterway would start having a massive impact on food prices. And that was back in June. We're now in August. That hasn't really happened. But there has to be at some point a biting point, right?
Well, there absolutely does. I mean, there absolutely has to be a biting point. So if we go back to May, beginning of June, There was talk of a shortage of jet fuel in Europe for planes. Now, again, a workaround has been found. Other types of fuel have been refined into jet fuel, and that means planes are still flying in Europe. That's causing other shortages to build up in other parts of the energy market. Look, fundamentally, at the end of February, before this war started, about 20% of global oil and gas supplies were moving through the Strait of Hormuz. The strait's now been closed for 5 months. A trickle is getting through. Some other supplies have managed to be rerouted by east-west pipelines and exported via the Red Sea. We are looking at having something like 10, 12% less oil and gas than the world economy is used to running with. You can run down stockpiles for a while to get through that. But if the flow is not restored, you're looking at really serious problems. You want me to put a date on it? I would say by the end of September, beginning of October, unless the situation changes.
And can I ask you finally, Mr. Weldon, politically, how much do you worry that this is a depth charge beneath Andy Burnham's government, or is that overplaying it?
It depends on how long it lasts, I think, is the real issue. What we do know, we know that the public, understandably and rightly, hate inflation. They hate price rises at pace. They hate seeing living standards being squeezed. And it's even if this is being almost entirely driven by international developments, British governments pay the political price for. When Russia invaded Ukraine and we had an energy price squeeze, that was not the government of Boris Johnson's fault, but they carried the political can forward. So the government will be completely aware of this. And I think it's no surprise that in his first week as Prime Minister, Andy Burnham's first interventions on cutting VAT on fuel bills, on £2 bus fares, etc., were all very focused on saying, we understand this is a problem, we are doing what we can.
Duncan Weldon, I'm enormously grateful to you for kicking the conversation off this evening. Thanks so much for joining us on LBC, economist and former economic policy advisor to the Labour Party and author of the book Blood and Treasure, The Economics of Conflict from the Vikings to Ukraine. Bob in Ipswich has immediately picked up on something that Duncan Weldon was saying at the end of that interview. He says there must, at the very least, be another extension of the freeze in fuel duty, but preferably a meaningful cut to fuel duty should happen. Donald Trump writes, Bob on text, is the cause of this, but it will never hurt him. American people are fuming with him, and so are we here in Britain. Let me know what you think. You can call me at 0345 6060 973. Same number for WhatsApp as it is for the phones. You can text 84850. It's 18 minutes past 7.
Ben Kentish from 10 p.m.
Oh la la! Fury from France today after Nigel Farage says he'd send in the British Navy to stop the small boats. Is that a serious solution? Plus, Jeremy Clarkson demands a thank you letter from benefit claimants. We'll take your calls on that. And Ariana Grande says she's taking a step back from performing because of the abuse she receives. Why do so many people seem to think celebrities are fair game?
Ben Kentish from 10 p.m. Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
You know that feeling when you're out, something cool happens and you just have to capture it. The new Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 8 gets it. Thanks to its new wide design, content looks and feels so much better. Unfold it for a massive cinematic screen. Close it for perfect reels on the go. No cropping, no missing bits. Just content exactly as it was meant to be seen. Pre-order the new Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 8 on EE for only £54 per month, increasing to £56.50 March 2027 and £59 March 2028. Airtime plan and 48-month device credit agreement required. Subject to status, 18+. Credit provided by EE Limited.
Here, we see a family, completely asleep. No arguing, no bickering, not a peep. Remarkable. When you travel by train with Southeastern, you unlock 2-for-1 entry and great discounts at over 150 attractions across London, Kent and East Sussex, like London Zoo, the Cutty Sark and Dover Castle. Job done with 2-for-1. Terms and conditions apply. Search Southeastern Railway 2-for-1. Buy your train tickets direct and pay no booking fees.
From countryside escapes to seaside breaks, and plenty of open roads in between, there's a Mazda for every kind of summer. Get 0% APR on selected models when ordered by the 30th of September, and keep your mind on the really important stuff, like trying to eat that ice cream before it melts. Search Mazda. Available on PCP when financed by Master Financial Services by the 31st of December 2026. Indemnities may be required. Terms apply. See website.
Simon Marks on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
It will not come as a surprise to any of you that even as we are talking about how the UK government should handle the threat of economic recession here that Donald Trump's war on Iran is now causing, that the President of the United States has been speaking in the Oval Office to reporters. Within the last few minutes, he has claimed, without providing any substantiation to support this claim, that Iran negotiations are going on now. The Iranians insist that is not the case. This is their last chance to sign a good document, he has told reporters. And a short while ago in the Oval Office, he made mention of how well he thought his war in Iran was going.
The Commission will help ensure we continue to give military spouses our very best, so our military can continue to be the strongest military anywhere in the world, and we're proving that. As you know, we had a conflict with Venezuela, worked out very well, and we have a conflict with Iran, and that's working out very well, very, very well.
And the President had just signed an executive order establishing that President's Military Spouse Commission to advise on issues and policies affecting military families. Well, there are certainly all sorts of issues and policies in the United States affecting military families, but they're also affecting families here in the UK. And the accounting giant EY is warning that this country is going to go into recession next year. Inflation, it says, could be as high as 6.4% by the end of this year, unless this war ends and the Strait of Hormuz is reopened. What do you think the UK government should be saying to President Trump about the urgent need to wrap this war up, and how are all of these developments going to impact Andy Burnham's hopes to generate economic growth? Let's go to the phone lines. Hassan is in Westminster. Evening, Hassan. How are you tonight?
Yeah, hello, good evening. Yeah, look, I really enjoyed the commentary from Duncan, and that really is quite shocking in terms of what is happening, and that the worst of the shock is probably going to come now, because so far we've been depleting our stockpiles, and especially, as you mentioned, that the storage capacity in the Gulf states is probably now full, and any further sort of delays would mean that their production capacity starts going down. So this is a dire situation. I think we have to use whatever influence we have on Trump to make sure he actually agrees a deal. And I place zero credibility on these sort of White House statements and X and other comments from him, because he's a compulsive liar, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, I think at this point he has zero credibility. I mean, if you go back, Hassan, to the beginning of the war, if we were having this conversation even on April the 3rd, at that point when President Trump said, well, talks are taking place and there's going to be a deal, it moved the markets. I mean, you saw the oil of the price of oil falling. That doesn't happen anymore, because the traders and the markets have priced into the fact that he's going to, as Wall Street always refers to it, he's going to tucko. Trump always chickens out, and he chickened out of that major attack over the weekend. But when you're dealing with a president who lacks that kind of credibility, we all here in the UK, if these EY numbers and projections are to be believed, are seriously going to start suffering.
No, absolutely. And if I make 2 points, look, one is we are not disinterested, uninvolved parties. We have air bases at home, in the Middle East, in Bahrain, in Iraq, and so many other places, which unfortunately are being used for these sort of so-called defensive operations over Iran. So I think we should use that as a lever for quiet diplomacy and insist that things cannot continue as they've been doing.
So what would you do? Set a deadline for a resolution of this, or pull the opportunity that we now afford the US Air Force to use our bases?
Absolutely. Look, I'm deeply uncomfortable that the planes are taking off on a regular basis and dropping massive munitions on Iran. So I do not want blood on my hand, number one. Number two, the other problem I have is with John Healey, who was very keen on upping the defense budget. And so if he wants to do that, then you have a double whammy, that you not only have to cut key sort of social welfare projects, development and other investments to put money into defense funding, but also if you're talking about removing the VAT on fuel, etc., those will also have their own costs. So we are actually upping the defense budget, which is one of the most unproductive uses of capital, at precisely the wrong moment. And the person we have in the Chancellor of Exchequer is a guy who wants to spend on defence and actually resigned from the previous cabinet on because the defence spending was not adequate.
Yeah, I mean, Hassan, I might disagree with you about that to the extent that I think that the Iran war further proves the need to up the defence expenditure here. But clearly, all of that and all the government's other plans, ambitions and targets will be very, very difficult to achieve if we suddenly find ourselves staring down the barrel of 6.5% inflation by the end of this year and a shrinking economy next year, as EY is warning. Thanks very much indeed for calling the programme tonight, Hassan. We're going to take you back to the Oval Office now, because within the last few minutes, President Trump has been talking once again about North Sea oil. Of course, he wants the North Sea to be opened up by Andy Burnham, and he referenced the president, a phone call that he recently had.
I spoke with your new prime minister. I was very impressed, and he sort of indicated to me, I said, look, you can be a wealthy country or a bankrupt country. You have your choice. Not every country has that choice. Almost no country has that choice. But in the case of the UK, Scotland, I'm talking about Scotland, right off the shore, in Aberdeen, Scotland. Aberdeen was the oil capital of Europe for years. And then one day the Liberals got in and they closed it. And your energy rates have quadrupled. You have among the highest energy prices in the world. You could cut them in half. You could give away free energy if you'd open up the North Sea. And it's good for another 500 years, maybe more, probably 1,000 years.
Well, the breaking news there is that Donald Trump says he's very impressed by Andy Burnham. I mean, that's a big development coming out of the White House, even if he did carry on to suggest that liberals, by which of course he means radical left politicians cut from Andy Burnham's cloth, got in and closed the North Sea. But the point that I was making earlier in the programme is, never mind revenues from North Sea oil that may or may not one day flow and help the UK economy. If you really wanted to help the UK economy, Mr. President, you would wrap this war with Iran up right now so that we don't have to face the possibility of a recession next year and 6.4% inflation just at the moment when families up and down the country are preparing to buy their Christmas presents in December. That's how you could really help the UK's economy bounce back. And then, of course, we can talk about North Sea oil a little bit later. Let's go back to the phone lines. Vincent is in Liverpool. Evening, Vincent.
Hello, Simon. You all right, mate?
I'm all right, mate. How are you?
To be honest, Trump needs an echo, but that's besides the point. Since I've been a kid, there's been a war in the Middle East. But years ago, no one mentioned about the knock-on effect. And I think it's baloney, personally. I think it's baloney as in the knock-on effect to yourself, even though you're on a good wage. The lads in there, the call centre, it won't affect you, will it?
Well, but wait a minute, Vincent. Do you drive a car?
Well, I do, yeah. But,
what are you paying for petrol in Liverpool?
I don't know. I just put it in. But the thing is, I don't put it in and go, that's down to Trump. Because that's ridiculous, isn't it?
Which bit's ridiculous? The fact that you don't blame Trump or that people are blaming Trump?
Well, just explain this to me. A bit of common sense here, Simon. You can grasp me. How can you blame Donald Trump if the petrol goes up?
Well, you blame Donald Trump for the petrol going up because the Strait of Hormuz is closed as a direct result of his decision to go to war on Iran. And the fact that tankers aren't...
for years, Simon, haven't they?
Well, but the Strait of Hormuz was open, Vincent, before the war began. The Strait of Hormuz has only been closed. I mean, I take your point about throughout your life you've been living with conflict in the Middle East. And yes, all of us have, in an on-again, off-again fashion. But this particular war on Iran has made an appreciable difference to you? Because every
Well,
time
tell
you
me
go
how
and fill...
those are. Just
because
in a
the
couple
Strait of
of words,
Hormuz
tell
has
me
been
how.
closed as a direct result of this war on Iran. The Iranians suddenly realised that the greatest weapon in their arsenal was not
Do you actually
some
believe
mythical
that, Sam?
nuclear...
Do you actually think the Iranians think that?
Of course they think it. Otherwise,
Well, you
why
don't
would they
know,
be
do you?
going to the mat to make sure that the Strait of Hormuz remains closed?
Sam, it's common sense. You know what? At the end of the day, things go up, things go down. The son will get the blame next week for being a bit brave. It's flabbergasting. I've got kids who have got great jobs. They can't get a mortgage. And that's what it is. Trades are finished. And that's what matters to the people. Black, white, green, it doesn't matter. That's what matters to this country. Not Trump. Trump says he needs a bit off the side, leave the front messy. But that's the truth, Simon, isn't it? It's called common sense.
OK, Vincent, I'm still not clear why you don't see the connection between this war, which was a war of choice by President Donald Trump. He didn't need to fight this war. There was no particular motivation for fighting this war because his own intelligence agencies said Iran was nowhere near to restarting its nuclear program, much less getting a nuclear weapon that could threaten to attack Europe or the United States. And a direct consequence of this war is that you're paying £1.60 a litre for unleaded. Oh, I think we lost him. Vincent in Liverpool has perhaps gone off to rethink the rules of economics and how they impact him. We'll carry on talking about this all the way up until 8 o'clock. Tell me what you think Andy Burnham ought to be doing in terms of financial planning. Should he price into his decision-making process this notion that the Strait of Hormuz is going to remain closed? Or do you think he should be optimistic and assume that the war is somehow going to end? And what messages should he and other European leaders be conveying to President Donald Trump about the urgent need to get this conflict over? And also coming up next, we'll have more on the effect that this war has had on fuel in this country, because unbelievably, almost £200,000 worth of petrol is being stolen. That's been going on every day since this war began on garage forecourts all over the country. We'll talk about that in just a moment. The time here on LBC, 28 minutes to 8, and the news headlines come from Amelia Cox.
UEFA is threatening FIFA with legal action over its president's failed attempt to sell stakes in its competitions to private investors. The English, Swedish and Welsh FAs have withdrawn their support for Gianni Infantino's re-election next year. Donald Trump is accusing Iran of being duplicitous for denying it would be taking part in talks with the US. The American president says the country is begging for negotiations privately and publicly claiming there are none. And Reform UK insists its plan to send the Royal Navy to stop small boat crossings in the English Channel are legal. The French government claims it would violate maritime and international law. LBC weather, heavy rain moves into the north and west tonight. Thunder in Northern Ireland, then drier with clear spells elsewhere, a low of 10 degrees.
LBC.
Octopus Energy is now Britain's biggest energy supplier, trusted by over 8 million customers, because we do things differently. When you call, you'll speak to a real person. No robotic scripts, no computer says no, just an honest conversation with someone who actually wants to help. Join the millions who've already made the move. Octopus Energy, recommended by Which? A record 9 years running. Visit octopus.energy/better for verification.
OMG, you guys, this Arabian deep cleansing mud bath is just amazing. I can feel all the toxins draining out of my body.
Babe, you're literally sipping Prosecco right now.
Take the train to a country spa and save a third off group travel on off-peak journeys. Thameslink Railway, where every stop is a story. Terms apply.
Who could you be with Pension B? When I'm ready, I can withdraw flexibly or set up a regular income. Withdrawals from 55, 57 from 2028.
The Big Arch just got bacon. More smokiness, more crispiness, more deliciousness. With juicy beef, cheddar cheese and that Big Arch sauce. Now topped with crispy bacon. The Big Arch just got bacon.
Until 28th of September 2026. Served from 11 a.m. subject to availability.
Octopus Energy. Great value and outstanding customer service. Recommended by which? A record 9 years running.
This is LBC with Simon Marks.
Still getting over our last caller from Liverpool, who doesn't seem to see the connection between the war on Iran and rising prices for petrol and other things here in the UK. Let me know if you agree with him. Maybe there are other people out there who take that view as well. We'll come back to your calls on Iran and the impact it's having on the UK economy in just a moment. But first, there was more evidence today of the economic pressure that is building. We learnt that every single day since the war on Iran began, UK drivers have stolen 200,000 quid's worth of petrol from garages all over the country. 200 grand every day. Forecourt Eye, which is the UK's leading fuel crime prevention platform, says nearly 50% more fuel is being nicked today versus what was happening in the 5 months leading up to the war. There are 2,872 incidents of fuel thefts in which people either just drive off without paying or fill up and then claim that they have no way of paying. And joining me now to explain what impact this is having on forecourts all over the country is Juliette Morrison, the editor of Forecourt Trader, a publication which, as its name suggests, focuses on the petrol retailing sector. Juliette Morrison, thank you so much for joining us on the programme this afternoon. I mean, these are, this evening rather, these are staggering numbers and must be having a disastrous impact on businesses all over the country that are trying to sell petrol and either find people just driving off without paying or then saying they haven't got the cash to cover their costs. Good evening.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's really important to point out and remember is that a lot of these businesses are independently owned family businesses. They might have the BP or the Shell or the Esso totem pole, but they're independently owned. And so it's not a victimless crime. It's very much these businesses are feeling it at their bottom line. And you know, it's at a time as well when their costs are increasing. Energy costs are increasing for them, staff costs. They're providing an invaluable service to the community, often 24 hours. And, you know, it's a big hit. You just told the figures there. It's astounding, the figures. And it's a perennial problem. It always gets worse during times when fuel prices increase or a cost of living crisis as well. But, you know, it's not uncommon for our readers to see 4 or 5 incidents a day, which is a huge impact on their bottom line.
And what does it do? I mean, it can only result in driving the price up further, right?
Yeah, yes, well, that's right. I mean, they often that will happen in the shop. The shops are becoming more and more important for forecourt operators. And they're offering a host of different services now than they ever did before, in-store butcheries and local products. So, yeah, the cost has to be passed on. They can't absorb it. These operators have already invested a lot of money in equipment to stop drive-offs, CCTV equipment that can identify number plates and problem vehicles so that the cashier doesn't turn on the pump until they're assured that it looks like a legitimate purchase. So that they're investing a lot, and they just need backup now from the police to not leave it to the sector to manage and police themselves.
And what happens if a motorist fills up and then walks, doesn't drive away without paying, but goes in and says to the cashier, "I'm sorry, I can't pay for it"?
Yeah, so people are using that as a payday loan to give them buying, a bit of time to pay that cost. Sometimes they do pay it a few days later. Sometimes they don't. And the problem is that's what we call no means of payment, and that's a civil offence. So it can be trickier to get that money back. And that's just another one of many ways that people are stealing fuel. We've even had instances of trucks parking in nearby fields next door to the petrol forecourt and siphoning with big pipes into the field, into the forecourt tanks, if they've got above ground tanks. And vans turn up and they've got empty containers in the back and they're filling them up as well. So it's a huge issue. I mean, typically a forecourt operator would lose about £50 with one of these drive-offs, but if it's a bit more sophisticated, it could be hundreds of pounds.
Juliette Morrison, I'm really grateful to you for joining us on the programme tonight. Editor of Forecourt Trader, a publication focusing on the petrol retailing sector and reflecting on the revelation that every single day since the war on Iran began, UK drivers have stolen £200,000 worth of petrol from garages all over the country. That's 50% more than was being stolen in the 5 months leading up to war. Frank has texted in. He's very unhappy with me. He says, I haven't got a clue. Ring me and I'll put you straight, he says. Trump could find a cure for cancer and you wouldn't give him the credit. Well, I'll tell you what, if he finds a cure for cancer, Frank, we can have that conversation. But in the meantime, what he's done is spark a war with Iran that now threatens to plunge the UK into recession at exactly the point when the new Prime Minister really wants to try and build economic growth and faces this looming threat, a ticking time bomb beneath his administration. Let's go to David in Swindon on the phone lines tonight. Evening, David.
Good evening. Yeah, I may sound a bit like doom-mongering, but I think if we put any amount of pressure on Trump, it is like water off a duck's back. As you said, he said 30 times he's going to do this. And Iran have said they've got a hit list of what they're going to attack in the Gulf states. You can see it online. And that's what's frightened the Saudi Arabians and Bahrain and all. You know, they've actually said, and I truly believe they will do it. They should say to Trump, if you attack, if we see one more missile coming towards us, all the 5 or 6 states will not have a desalination plant. You'll not have a refinery. You'll not have the east-west pipeline. And we will just bomb you. I don't think they care. They just, because if they threaten have an existential threat on them, this time they're going to do it.
Well, David, I think you go ahead.
It won't matter. You're talking trivia. You're talking about 6.5% inflation. You're talking about £1.60 a litre. You probably won't be able to buy petrol if Trump carries on. And I think the key is Iran have got to actually do something.
Well, look, Iran's got to do something in what sense?
Well, carry out some of these threats in a big time and say to Trump, if you attack us, we are going to attack, your infrastructure, your hotels, your desalination plants, your nuclear reactors, and there won't even be oil.
Well, look, I wouldn't agree with anything that encourages the regime of Iran to commit war crimes. I mean, they've already attacked one desalination plant, and arguably that is a war crime in exactly the same way as President Trump's threat to go after bridges and power plants. Civilian infrastructure in Iran would constitute a war crime. But I mean, I think the bigger issue I'm trying to talk about this evening is what do we do about it, and what do European leaders do about something that, according to EY, the accounting giant formerly known as Ernst & Young, now threatens to plunge our economy into recession by the end of this year going into 2027. I mean, how do we concentrate the minds of an American president to wrap this conflict up?
Well, like in my opening remarks, it's impossible. It's like trying to squeeze hydrogen in your hands. You can't do it.
So you think we're just doomed, David?
You don't think he realises the precipice we're on?
So you think recession is coming?
Absolutely, and I think it's coming faster and harder. I think there won't be people pinching petrol. They won't be able to get any.
David, thanks very much indeed for calling in. That's David in Swindon. Lots of you are texting in with regard to stolen petrol from garage forecourts, saying that we should go back to the way things used to be. Bob in Enfield says perhaps petrol stations should consider doing what they do on the continent, pay first. Karen, who's texting in from somewhere in Canada, says here in Canada you have to pay before you pump gas. That would be a really easy solution for the UK. Many more of your calls to come and texts on this issue of what we're going to do to try and persuade Donald Trump to wrap this conflict up in Iran so that we here in the UK are not facing 6.4% inflation in time for Christmas and a shrinking economy next year at exactly the worst possible moment. It feels like another sort of COVID-19 moment, the way in which COVID-19 completely constrained the economy and the choices that Boris Johnson had when he was Prime Minister. Andy Burnham coming to power with what he wants to be a pro-growth agenda. Even if you disagree with some of the things that he's planning to do, he certainly put the emphasis on growth. And yet this threat sits beneath his administration with each passing day and the longer this conflict continues. More of your calls at 0345 6060973. You can text 84850. It's now coming up. It's just after 7:45.
This is LBC.
Claire's in Carlisle.
Scott has called from Glasgow. Hi, Scott.
Jane's in Camden first. Hi, Jane.
Not all places have felt that they're part of the national story, and that is what this government is going to work every single day to change.
Hear every side of the story.
He needs to get directly to the core issues that people are feeling on a day-to-day basis, because a lot of people don't feel hope.
I would rather there be something in Manchester than have to always be completely and utterly disregarded by London.
I deplore this kind of walk into the number 10 without a mandate. Really, we should have a general election.
The regional representation that Burnham's got in his cabinet, because there's nobody from the southwest represented in that. How do we get heard?
Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app. LBC, leading Britain's conversation.
The big hearts just got bacon. More smokiness, more crispiness, more deliciousness. With juicy beef, cheddar cheese and that big arch sauce. Now topped with crispy bacon. The Big Arch just got bacon.
Until 28th of September 2026. Served from 11 a.m. Subject to availability.
At the third stroke, the time from BT will be 6 o'clock precisely.
Today in the UK, BT will protect millions of homes against scammers.
Threat neutralised.
Keep thousands of family video chats running smoothly. And answer every call for support from the UK and Ireland.
OK, all sorted.
Switch to broadband you can rely on, with advanced security included as standard.
At the third stroke, the time from BT will be brilliant.
BT, behind brilliant things.
Who could you be with Pension B? I can add to my pension whenever I want. Regular contributions help to build my future. Download the app today.
A message from TfL for drivers, motorcyclists and cyclists. Before you turn, look around. Is there someone crossing or waiting to cross at the junction? You now need to always let them cross before you turn. Follow the highway code to keep everyone safe. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Get unlimited video calls with vets from First Vet with Pets in a Pickle. For pet insurance policies as unique as they are, visit petsinapickle.co.uk.
Take summer by storm with Kia. Introducing the new Kia Sportage Storm, a unique limited edition of the UK's favourite family SUV. Test drive the award-winning Kia Sportage today and order yours by the 31st of August to get 5.9% APR representative and up to £3,000 PCP finance deposit contribution. Search Kia Takes Summer by Storm.
Kia. Movement that inspires.
T's and C's apply. Kia Finance. To verify, visit kia.com/UK/favourite.
Simon Marks on LBC. Text 84850.
Emily has texted in to say there's nothing the UK can do. Trump has wanted to end this war multiple times, but every time he does, he cannot control or contain Netanyahu. Every time they bomb Lebanon, the Israelis, going after Hezbollah, the deal breaks down, she says. Well, first of all, I mean, Israel is responding to Hezbollah rockets that are being fired at Israel. And secondly, I'm not sure that it is simply Benjamin Netanyahu going after Lebanon that is the reason why this war has not wrapped up. I mean, that 14-point page-and-a-half memorandum of understanding that Trump signed with the Iranians has got more holes than a piece of Swiss cheese in it. And the Iranians clearly have absolutely no desire to make peace with Donald Trump. They want to use their leverage, both in terms of control of the Strait of Hormuz and the stockpile of ballistic missiles that they still have at their disposal, to their full advantage. And they also are very aware that Donald Trump's got his eye on the midterm elections in November, which is another reason why they want to maximise their ability to try and cut him off from achieving any kind of victory that he would be able to present to the United States as a mission accomplished moment. Never mind what I think. Let's go to Watford and find out what a first-time caller to LBC thinks. It's Kamar. Good evening, Kamar. Thanks for making your first call to LBC. What would you like to say?
Hi, Simon. Thank you for receiving my call. I think you're the most informed mainstream journalist about America. Let's bring that out there. But
well,
also, I wanted to
very
talk
kind of
about.
you.
I want to talk about, the impending recession crisis. I think that everyone's been way too late to this discussion. I think it's definitely happening, and I think that the main cause is that there's going to be shortages, because right now, because the prices have been manipulated, we don't have a true sense of that, and it's all got to do with the supply and demand, but we're going to be running into actual shortages, because I think I was looking into this, and I was using AI to predict this, and I think around end of September is when we're going to run into real shortages, and the strategic petroleum reserves for the EU and especially America are running low. I think they've hit that baseline where if they now extract, it's under that risk because it's salt caverns. And so I think we're going to be actually running out of oil resources. And when you don't have oil, which is energy, right, then your economy is going to suffer because we're going to have to ration. So I don't think that Burnham, and I don't really like him, but I don't think he can do anything here now to salvage this. I think it's a bit too late. I think recession is going to hit the global economies. I think China hasn't really been buying much of oil. So at some point, they're going to need to buy oil. That's really going to put it. And you think that Russia, the Saudis, or Iran, any oil that's going out there is going to prioritize the West, or they're going to prioritize China, who's been helping them. So I think we're at a point where it's definitely happening. We have to kind of brace for impact. And I think that all the Western leaders have been weak and pathetic on this issue, because when Russia invaded Ukraine, everyone stood up to Russia and goes, what are you doing? Why are you invading another UN country? When America did it, everyone was mild-mannered and they weren't as strong on him. I think along with Chinese economic power and the EU and us and Canada, we could have put real pressure on America and gone, this is wrong. We don't accept invasions. And I think that was the point to stop him.
Well, Kamal, there's a lot there to unpack. I mean, first of all, on the timeline, the research that you've done was borne out by what we heard from Duncan Weldon at the start of the hour, that September is going to be crunch time, although we have heard about crunch time coming for many weeks to come, and the economy globally has proved, I think, more resilient than certainly some of the doomsayers were suggesting, back in May and June. But I think you raise a really important point in terms of the failure of there having been, certainly publicly, any kind of coordinated pressure from European leaders to talk to Donald Trump about the economic impacts of this war. I mean, whatever you think about the legality or the morality or lack thereof in waging this war, it is our country, it's the French, it's the Italians, it's the Germans, it's the Spanish, as well as the Americans who are paying the cost for all of this. Approval ratings last week that showed Donald Trump in the 22 to 25% range in terms of his approval over handling of Iran, inflation, the price of petrol in the United States. You would have thought that that would have been a pressure point that would have been brought to bear in conversations with the United States much earlier than it appears to have happened.
Yeah, I think you're correct about that. But what's happened is that they expected, China to buy oil. They didn't, so we had a little bit more capacity. Also, Saudi Arabians been taking oil out from the other side, from the Bab al-Mam Strait, I think it's called, about 4 million barrels. And so that's alleviated some of the pressure. And then obviously Iran's been able to get some shipping out to kind of its allies, so that's reduced a bit of demand there.
Yeah, although the US denies that. I mean, the US insists Iran has got nothing going out and nothing coming in. So that there's a clash of perspectives there.
Me and you both, and you can't really trust America, right? Like, we could give you administration or regime. I'm gonna flip it here, right? From the east to the west, I'm going to say regime. The American regimes, every single one of them has put out statements that have been proven to be incorrect, or let's say the figures have been massaged. Even the casualty figures, they're updating them, they're changing them. I don't think we can rely on just because it's a government source to say that's what they've said. We need proof or evidence.
That issue, that is extraordinary, Kamar. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I've never had a chance to talk about that yet here on LBC. But that issue about changing the casualty figures, there are 18 American troops that have died as a result of this Iran conflict. Only they reduced that number to 14 because they argued that the last 4 American service members who died had died during a period of what was officially a ceasefire. I mean, just staggering move by the Pentagon. Kamar, thanks so much for calling LBC for the first time. I hope you'll call us again. Let's go to Robert in Ramsgate. Evening, Robert.
Good evening, Simon.
How are you tonight?
Not too bad.
Good. What would you like to say?
I think the complexities of it, I mean, the guy who just spoke, he was very fluid about complexities and who's buying oil off who and who's doing what, and who, he's got a lot more knowledge than I've got. My knowledge just basically looks at who you're dealing with, and we're probably dealing with one of the worst regimes ever to be in existence on this planet.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't disagree with you about that at all.
So, are you going to trust them? What deal are they going to come up with? I think the last deal was going to be something to do with them earning $300 billion or something.
From the US, up to $300 billion in American organised investment if they signed a long-term deal within 60 days of the signing of that MOU.
Yeah, right. So now that, to me, would have been a total disaster.
Absolutely.
To give a regime like the Iranian regime all that money to play with. And God knows what they would have done with it. They probably would have funded more Hamasis as well. So what we're dealing with is somebody who's cracking the whip. They're cracking the whip with the Western world, and they're dominating us by blackmail. So I know it's a bit of a hard, let's say, something to swallow, but I think we should be backing up America 100% on this. And I don't say Donald Trump, I say America, because America seems to be putting themselves out there all the time. They're policing the Straits of Hormuz where our ships go through nice and safely.
Well, but they're not, Robert. I mean, the Strait of Hormuz is closed.
Yeah, but we've got to show commitment. So we've got to send probably, if like Italy, France, Germany, Britain, sent their fleets out there with their aircraft carriers, and every time an Iranian plane went to take off, they prevented that. I'm not saying annihilate them, but just overpower them with conventional weapons. And I read today that the Kurdish people in the north are rising up now.
Yeah, but Robert, there have been so many suggestions that the Kurds in the north were going to get involved in this, that they were being paid by the CIA to prepare to do something, and none of that has ever really come to very much. Listen, I really appreciate you calling, Robert. That was Robert in Ramsgate. I want to squeeze one more call in this hour, and it comes from Ted, who is another first-time caller to LBC. He's in Belfast. Evening, Ted.
Hi, mate. How are you?
All right, thanks. What would you like to say?
Well, if we're just talking about the possible oncoming economic crisis from this war, I don't think Trump is going down this war anytime soon. I think he's frankly mad. I don't see it ending anytime soon. I don't think he's going to listen to European leaders on this. He just really wants to listen to himself and the people around him. But what Burnham needs to do is, because I don't think it's going to end, he needs to offset people's cost of living, as in try to reduce cost of living before this crisis comes. You get what I'm saying?
But how would he do that? I mean, especially given the pressure that this recession is going to create on the public finances.
Well, I have two ideas which I'd like to share. One, these are two things I don't think are out of the realm. It's one's the nationalisation of water. You can nationalise water very easily.
Okay, Ted, I've got to hurry you because I've got to get to the news. What's the second idea?
Is nationalise water and be able to cut people's water charges. That's going to make a real difference for people's pockets. The other thing you do is BP has now left the North Sea.
Yes.
So there's an opportunity, that infrastructure still exists, for the government to come in and have nationalised oil drilled in the North Sea, and they can directly cut people's fuel costs if they are drilling oil in the North Sea.
Okay, Ted, I've got to get to the news, but I'm really grateful to you for calling in, and you're absolutely right to make the observation that BP is pulling out of the North Sea. We'll talk about this more to come. In the next hour, though, we're going to put the spotlight on policing. The Conservatives say if they return to government, they want to put police back on the knocker, investigating thefts of cell phones, laptops, cars and bikes, especially any item that can be tracked online. Thefts where the owner of the property can literally see where the filchers have taken it. Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp says his plan would solve 36,000 more crimes a year. So have you had an item nicked, been able to track where it's gone and reported it to the police? And what was that experience like? Have you ever spotted one of your possessions showing up for sale online or maybe on your local high street? Is it realistic to divert resources into relatively low-level crime?
On your radio, on the LBC app, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 8 o'clock, the Trump administration has denied being in talks with Gianni Infantino as he reportedly tries to hold on as FIFA president. The English, Swedish and Welsh FAs have withdrawn their support for his re-election following a failed attempt to sell off stakes in the World Cup. Dr. Jan Zlinski is Associate Professor at the LSE Law School with a focus on sport law and regulation. He's told LBC the world of football has had a form of Stockholm syndrome when it comes to Mr. Infantino's leadership.
The federations, the member associations all thought that that football governance could only be done with and by Gianni Infantino, by the FIFA president. He got away with expanding half-time to 28 minutes, the Club World Cup trophy in the White House. These were all moments where there could have been pushback, but there wasn't really enough. So this time it seems that he's flown too close to the sun.
Donald Trump has issued a warning to Iran, saying it's their last chance to sign what he's calling a good document. The US president says talks between the two sides are going on now, despite earlier denials from Tehran. He's called off planned strikes and says both sides are talking about fully reopening the Strait of Hormuz by tomorrow.
The first phase is the opening of the straits. The second phase will be the denuclearization, and that'll take a little while. But we're very strong on it. They cannot have a nuclear weapon. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Reform UK says it would send the Royal Navy to intercept small boats in the Channel if it wins the next general election. Labour's accusing the party of creating distractions. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has said he thinks he and Andy Burnham are going to have a very good relationship, as he again stressed the need for the UK to tackle immigration. And provisional statistics suggest England and Wales have both experienced their driest July on record. Much of England's been under a heat health alert today, with temperatures in the southeast topping 35 degrees Celsius. In the city, the FTSE 100 has closed down 10 points at 10,857. The pound buys $1.34 and €1.16. LBC weather, heavy rain moving into the north and west tonight. Thunder in Northern Ireland, then dry with clear spells elsewhere. A low of 10 degrees. Showers and a risk of lightning in Scotland tomorrow. Elsewhere, sunny spells with patchy cloud and scattered showers and highs of 30 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Katie Dartford.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Simon Marks.
And I'm in for Ian Dale tonight and all this week. Coming up after the news at 9, we're going to talk about Education Secretary Lucy Powell's claim today that a schooling straitjacket is leaving millions of youngsters behind. And if there was just more focus on technical subjects alongside the reading, writing, arithmetic, English, history, science, millions of children would not be branded failures. It's quite a discussion, that one, and we'll have it in our last hour together tonight. But this hour, policing and new proposals that were unveiled by the Conservatives today to try and get your stolen phone, laptop, bike or car back, especially if it's an item that you can track and perhaps even see its location online after it's been stolen. Here's Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp.
It's unacceptable, in my view, that 92% of reported crime doesn't get solved. We've all had examples, either personally or our friends, where you've reported a mobile phone stolen and the Find My iPhone signal tells you where it is and the police then don't do anything, or you've seen a stolen bike advertised on eBay and the police don't follow it up. I would like to mandate the police to always follow those kind of leads, that the iPhone signal, the mobile, the bike on eBay, or images of a suspect taken on CCTV, that should always be run through the facial recognition database. We can solve tens of thousands more crimes by doing these basic things.
36,000 crimes a year, he says, will be solved if the police take what he calls a knock-on-the-door approach. Is he right? And could his plan have helped you? Have you had a previous item, a precious item stolen that was either equipped with built-in tracking software like a phone, or maybe an item on which you had attached a tag that allowed you then to track its location? Did you contact the police? And did you tell them that you knew exactly where your phone or your bike or whatever else it happened to be could be found? And how did the police respond? Only 1 in 12 thefts in this country currently results in criminal charges. In London, that number falls to 1 in 17. Do you think that on this issue, the Tories are on the right track? If you've had something stolen, how frustrating was it to know where it was and yet not be able to call on the police to help you recover it? If you're a serving or former police officer, is this the kind of crime for which precious resources should now be found? I mean, obviously, this policy is designed to sound appealing to voters, but is it practical without significant new investment in police forces that are understaffed, struggling to keep up with more serious investigations? And that's before we get to the funding crisis that is gripping the Crown Prosecution Service, the Probation Service, the very, very long queues that exist to get cases heard in magistrates' courts, and, of course, the prison crisis. Let me know what your experiences have been of having something stolen and then trying to get the police to do something about it. And do you think that these kind of relatively low-level offences, car thefts, bike thefts, laptops, cell phones, whatever it happens to be, are where we should be putting resources in order to achieve quick results? You can call me at 0345 6060 973. Same number for WhatsApp that it is for the phone. You can text 84850. Joining me to begin our conversation this evening is David McKelvey, Chief Executive of TMI, a company which investigates thefts from shops. And Mr. McKelvey is also a former Detective Chief Inspector in the Metropolitan Police. So, Mr. McKelvey, welcome to the programme. Very glad to have you with us here on LBC this evening. And before we sort of interrogate this Conservative proposal, I know that you yourself, a former Detective Chief Inspector in the Met, have had a quite extraordinary personal experience involving a theft that was taking place in your parents' own home. Can you tell us about that, just to kick us off? Good evening.
Yeah, no, very briefly, Simon. A few months back, my parents died last year, passed away last year. I went round their house and found three people in the premises who'd broken in, stolen electrical goods, my father's art collection. I detained them, called police. Police did attend after a period of time. And after about an hour of discussion, they took them to an address and let them go. I was told they would deal with it in slow time, and I've heard nothing since. And they were 3 people that I'd caught literally burgling my parents' home. So, that's very unusual, but it does happen. And we see day in, day out, we detain between 10 to 40 people a day across our 42 beats. And, we do see issues with police attendance. But this is all down to resources. The reality is the police are run absolutely ragged, at the moment. And you're seeing more and more cuts in policing. And the fact is they can't keep up, they can't cope. So, as you said in the introduction, if they're going to do this, there's got to be a massive reinvestment back into policing, and not just policing, back into the judicial system, because you can arrest them, you can charge them, but when you're waiting 2 years to go to court, we had a case that took 6 years before it got to court. You're wasting your time.
And can I just ask you one more question about your own personal experience there? I mean, as a former detective chief inspector in the Met, were you surprised that nothing was done, or had you kind of priced that in, given the changes that have taken place in policing and those resource cutbacks that you've outlined over the last several years?
Yeah, I think I priced it in, to be honest. We deal with the police day in, day out. There are some absolutely excellent police officers out there, but there are some that aren't, just don't do the job. This particular individual I was dealing with was a waste of time. And I ended up doing the investigation myself. And we are going to prosecute the 3, providing we can find them again. We'll prosecute them as a private criminal prosecution.
Oh, you're trying to do a private prosecution?
Yeah. I mean, we tend to do this. In the introduction, you're talking about thefts, retail thefts. We're doing everything now. We're doing burglaries, we're doing drug offences, robberies. We're doing, more and more criminality that policing has seemed to leave behind.
So you feel like you're filling a void?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt about it.
And let me ask you about these specific proposals that the Conservatives have floated today. And there are many of our listeners who are texting in, making the point that the staffing crisis within the police is a direct consequence of 14 years of Conservative rule. One of our listeners, Phil in Inverness, has texted in to say the Tories saying they'd fix policing is akin to an arsonist offering you a bucket of water as your house burns down. So there is clearly a great deal of national memory about where these cutbacks began. But in terms of the resources that are currently available to police, if they were told that they now were going to be, as Chris Philp put it there, mandated to follow leads and to find things like stolen cell phones and laptops, I mean, what's that going to do to policing more serious crimes?
And that's the point. The point is, at the moment, based on what the government's put forward about community policing, putting more police officers back into the community, dealing with retail crime, etc. The reality of that is they're robbing Peter to pay Paul. They're taking people off of specialist crime units. They've disbanded the road policing units. You're seeing another 3,500 drop in numbers in the Met alone. You have got young detectives who have literally joined the Met or joined the police, who are trying to investigate over 100 crimes. You just can't do that. It's impossible. So you're sitting in a position, really, where they're in an impossible state. There has to be dramatic changes. And the one thing that, these figures that you quoted earlier about 1 in 12 and 1 in 17, that's massively underreported. Theft is massively underreported. People do not report and record, even burglaries now, let alone robberies. We see that day in, day out. From dealing with the public, they'll say it's no point in reporting it to the police until we get actual real reality figures as to what's going on. You can't make any of these, judgment calls. And that's what went on years ago with the Tories. The police were naive in what they were doing, they were reducing crime by manipulating and manufacturing the figures. And they caught a cold because the Tories turned around and said, well, we don't need so many police officers, we don't need so many police stations, and they cut the funding. And under Theresa May, you saw devastation effectively, and that's what's gone on. And unfortunately, you saw Starmer come in and he spoke about, increasing numbers by 10,000. Never happened. It's reduced. So it's all politicians. They all talk, but there's no achievements at the end of it.
So if you were advising the government, where would you suggest they start with rebuilding policing across the country? It clearly would not be with Chris Philp's idea of trying to force the police, mandate the police to solve what he claims would be an additional 36,000 low-level crimes a year.
It's got to be built literally from foundations up. You need to look at the leadership. You've had report after report come out recently stating that leadership at the police is lost. It's not fit for purpose. It's got to be started at the very top and brought down. You've got a very, very young, very inexperienced police service now. And until such time as you get back to what you used to have, which was experienced detectives investigating serious and organised crime, investigating robberies, burglaries, get back to the stuff that matters. And, of course, the other big issue you've got is that, you've got a lot of these grooming gangs, sex crimes, etc. That's going to become the priority towards the end of this year. And they're going to have to refocus policing onto those more, serious subjects. They're going to move away from where they've moved at the moment to community policing. You've got to deal with the stuff that really matters.
Yeah, and of course, if they didn't, they'd have the Conservative Party and other political parties coming after them. David McKelvey, thanks so much for joining us on the programme. Former Detective Chief Inspector in the Met, now the Chief Executive of TMI, a company which investigates thefts from shops and other crimes, as David was explaining there, an extraordinary void that his company and I'm sure others are filling. So call me and tell me what your experiences are of having something stolen, then trying to get the police to do something about it. And also I want to know that in your particular case, if it was a relatively low-level thing like a stolen cell phone and you could literally see on the find feature where the phone was and the police still were unable to or did nothing to go out and recover the phone, would you prefer that they had done that rather than focusing on some of those more serious investigations and crimes that David McKelvey was indicating they are going to have to start focusing on? Call me at 0345 6060 973, same number for WhatsApp that it is for the phones. You can also text 84850. It's 16 minutes past 8.
Ben Kentish from 10 p.m.
Oh la la! Fury from France today after Nigel Farage says he'd send in the British Navy to stop the small boats. Is that a serious solution? Plus, Jeremy Clarkson demands a thank you letter from benefit claimants. We'll take your calls on that. And Ariana Grande says she's taking a step back from performing because of the abuse she receives. Why do so many people seem to think celebrities are fair game?
Ben Kentish from 10 p.m. Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
Aha! Shiver me timbers! To the high seas! There's treasure and adventure across them waters!
Stop rocking the boat, Dad. You're making my feet wet.
Oh, sorry.
Explore Rye Pirates and Smugglers Day with kids' train tickets for £2 on off-peak journeys. Southern Railway, where every stop is a story. Terms apply.
At the third stroke, the time from BT will be 6 o'clock precisely.
Today in the UK, BT will protect millions of homes against scammers.
Threat neutralised.
Keep thousands of family video chats running smoothly.
Hi, Nana.
And answer every call for support from the UK and Ireland.
OK, all sorted.
Switch to broadband you can rely on, with advanced security included as standard.
At the third stroke, the time from BT will be brilliant.
BT, behind brilliant things.
Guys, gals and non-binary pals, we're Copperfield, the breast cancer awareness charity. This is your reminder to check your chest. Learn how at copperfield.org.
I heard you. A red light becomes a moment to breathe. A coffee run, a kick of momentum. A wrong turn turns into an adventure, while a song becomes your soundtrack. From the driver's seat of an LBX, even the most ordinary of days can feel that little bit extra. The award-winning Lexus LBX self-charging hybrid. Find the extraordinary in the everyday.
Simon Marks on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
We're talking about policing, the priorities for policing, and also your experiences of having something stolen and then trying to get the police to do something about it. Let's go to Lisa, a first-time caller to LBC from Barnet this evening. Evening, Lisa.
Hi.
Thanks for calling in. You're
Thank
on the
you.
air. What would you like to say?
I'm on the fence on this issue. Mainly I get about resources and years of cuts, but also the other side of it is that I feel something should be done because being a victim of a mugging has a really long-lasting impact. I know a phone is immaterial, you can replace it, but the impact it has on a person. And the reason why I rang in is my son and his friend were mugged quite early in the day, about 5 o'clock. And I also, a couple of weeks later, witnessed a similar-looking gang mug another set of boys at a local cinema in broad daylight. In the cases, we could, in lifetime, we could track where the phone was. And what was frustrating is that I was round the corner from when it happened to my son, and we were sitting on the bus that the phone was being taken away on, which meant that the police could have, if they were there and then available, they could have actually found the perpetrators.
Wait, Lisa, first of all, I'm very sorry that you and your son had to go through this, but you were sitting on the bus.
No, we were sitting in the car. I went to collect my son. He borrowed a person's phone in the street that witnessed the mugging.
Right.
And we were round the corner, so we picked him up. And because he's got a tracker, we've got a
Yes.
tracker device. We could follow where the phone was going. It was just incredibly frustrating as a parent to sort of know that your son has been traumatised this way,
Awful.
watching where these criminals were going. It's not about getting the phone back. We were trying to work out what to do. In the end, we decided not to pursue it. We rang the police, and it took weeks for them to even the right department to call us because we live on the border of where the mugging happened. The wrong department called, and I won't go into the administration nightmares of it. It's 8 months later. We've only just been asked to go in and ID potential faces. Now, I did speak to the police officer in charge quite a lot because I went to all the local shops. I grew up in the area where it happened, and I managed to get loads of footage from the local shops of what had happened. And by logic, I worked out where, and looking at my son's tracking device, at what time these perpetrators went past a video camera that would have caught their faces really clearly. So I gave all this information to the police. I was asked to work as an aside. They said, "You want a job on the police?"
I was just going to say, they ought to be bringing you in. Are you serious? You sort of went out and acted as your own private investigator?
I did, because I was so angry that someone thinks it's okay to do this to another person. But they just see it as taking a phone. They don't realise the real trauma.
I mean, but it's more. But a mugging is more than taking a phone. I mean,
well, the criminals don't think that. They clearly don't care.
But I mean, in the way that, for example, Chris Philp has been talking about this Conservative plan, he's talking about these things as being, you have your cell phone pickpocketed, you have your laptop taken away because you might leave it somewhere and someone sees a target or opportunity and grabs it. They drive your car away because you've left the keys in it. Mugging is not a low-level crime, and yet you are still finding that even that has taken 8 months before you're in a place where they're asking you to look at mugshots.
But to add to this, the mugshots are irrelevant because they explain the process. If you don't ID one of the criminals in the first set of photos, they won't let you proceed to the next one. Now, they wore balaclavas, so how on earth is my son really going to know that? One got him in a headlock from behind. The other one was rummaging through his pocket. So he wasn't being careless in the sense his phone was out on display. He had it zipped up. They went through his body, to get this phone. And, 9 months later, he's not going to remember those faces. So I get what they were doing. It was explained to me that they can't arrest them on a one-off charge because they're very likely to get away. They're trying to build up a picture of placing the criminals in all these different locations, so they build up that they are a serial criminal and they've got more chance of prosecuting them. So I kind of understand that process if you're saying don't waste resources catching each particular crime. Yet at the same time, the other side of the fence is the victim, what the victim's gone through. And even I'm scared of being out in broad daylight now because of what my son's gone through.
And before I ask you, I've got a question about your son, but first of all, in the city of Nottingham, they are looking into the possibility of banning balaclavas for exactly the reason that you have outlined.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a good idea that should be rolled out nationally?
Why are they necessary, I would say? It's I mean, the only time we used to have snoods when we were little that would cover your face because it was cold. That was the only time you wore something. So when I witnessed these other boys a few weeks later getting pushed into the bushes in broad daylight by, little kids, they were targeting 12-year-old kids, these really tall, big, gangs of six youths or whatever, all of them in balaclavas in the daytime. And it was a warm day. There was no reason for wearing them. So, yeah, I could see that making sense as well.
And I was going to ask you, Lisa, about your son. How old was your son when this happened, and how has it altered his perception of being out in public?
I think the fact that you, as a parent, say it's not if it's going to happen to your child, you almost feel like when.
Isn't
and
that
how do you
awful?
prepare for it? It's
Isn't that
awful.
awful?
Yeah, and I'm not naive. My dad was mugged in the same area, but he was in a dark alleyway, and this was 40 years previously for some money. He didn't have phones weren't used in those days. So, but I'm not saying mugging is new. It's just there's something about I don't understand. Maybe resources need to be funneled into why people think it's okay to physically assault someone to take their possession. My head doesn't compute why it's acceptable to just take someone else's possession. Is it an initiation? Because half these phones are redundant to them.
Right, especially if you've loaded it with the software that allows you to switch it off and lock it and all of that kind of stuff. Lisa, thanks so much for sharing that with us. I'm really sorry that you and your family had to go through that experience, and I hope your son is doing all right. And I think you've really helped shine a light on the issue that we're talking about this hour, because, everybody's going to have their own definition of what is low-level crime and what are crimes that the police should be mandated to investigate. But if something like that experience, they don't have the time or the resources available to investigate, and it takes 8 months before the family is able to go through mugshots and try to help the police make any headway in terms of the investigation. I mean, that really speaks to 14 years of Conservative rule and the impact that it had on policing in the UK. And so when you hear what Chris Philp is suggesting today, the Shadow Home Secretary, I think you have to definitely put that into its historical context. Let's go to Dennis in Woolwich. Good evening, Dennis. What's your experience been?
Yeah, good evening. Basically, my car got broken into, and the same day that my car got broken into, I think it was actually something they just did throughout on our street or the road for that night. And I got the alert on my phone, and when I actually went down to the car, I noticed that, my AirPods was missing, and my sunglasses and lots of keys were all gone. I basically called the police, and I reported the crime to them. I knew it was a low rate crime, but the only thing that actually really got me upset was because the AirPods was actually given to me by my missus for my birthday. So I then reported it, and I think about 2 or 3 days after, my son then said to me, "Oh, Dad, we can actually track your phone, your AirPod." And I went, "Oh yeah, that's true. Let's see where he is." And then he did it, he checked it, and he found out that it was just somewhere around, which is just about a mile away from us.
So even 3 days later, you could find the location?
Oh, yeah, of course. So we then phoned the police again, and then we gave them the crime number, and we said, this is exactly where we gave the address, we gave the number, we gave everything. And the lady goes to me, you can go and collect it there.
What, just show up yourself?
Yeah.
In a situation that could have posed who knows what kind of danger and risk to you?
exactly what I said to her. I said, but anything could happen. And she just started taking it in a different way. How do you mean something could happen? What are you trying to instigate? I went, ma'am, I've only just reported to you that we can track my airport, and I believe it's at so this address. And the way she carried on, we just said, okay, we'll give it up, and that's it. 4 or 5 days after, I kept tracking it because it was just something that was more personal to me, being that it was a gift.
Of course.
So I kept looking into it, and the airport was moving from one place to the other, which was not far to us at all. It was just within the radius, a mile away from us. So we called the police again, and then somebody else picked it up. We explained to them, and they went, whereby is it? We told them exactly where it was. We told them, oh, it's gone to this address. Oh, it's at this particular address. This moved it to this place now. And they still wouldn't do anything. They went, there's nothing we can do about it, because it could just be, we could go there and they'll say that we did it for almost about 3 months, and then I just gave up. I said that was it.
But I mean, the AirPods couldn't have been findable for 3 months, could they?
For 3 months, yes, sir.
Because I guess they were just charging them up. Yeah.
Yeah, for 3 good months. It was moving from one place to the other.
And you never went and tried to confront the people that had taken those AirPods yourself?
Well, I really wouldn't want to do that, because it was actually in the houses, or in the house, or in a particular building.
Right.
And we zoomed into it, we could actually really see it there. We could see the building, we could see everything, we saw the location. Even at times I would be driving around that area and it pops up that your airport is just there. And there was nothing we could do. We just saw, like I said, we're not going to go for the confrontation.
So Dennis, frustrating though that experience must have been, if you know that the police are in a situation where they've got to choose, as our guest David McKelvey was suggesting earlier in the hour, between finding your AirPods or going after a grooming gang, which of those two choices do you want them to make?
I'll say they both have both ways, though. They weigh the same thing. I don't know what to put it, because some people is something personal to them. Grooming gangs, I would say that they should have actually gone. I mean, that was there. I don't know what to say. I wouldn't know which one to choose.
OK, so that's interesting. Dennis, thanks very much indeed for calling the programme. I mean, that's interesting, isn't it? That the choice, if you have personally been affected by crime, is not necessarily an easy one to make, because I think most listeners would have said, go after the grooming gangs. I'll just go get myself another pair of AirPods. Let me know what you think. You can call us at 0345 6060 973. You can text 84850. Coming up, if you are in the southern half of England, you will no doubt have noticed it was another scorcher today. How much longer is this going on for? And how big an impact on our water supply is this drought having? We're going to be finding out next. It's now 29 minutes to 9 and the news headlines come from Katie Dartford.
The White House says it has no plans for a call with Gianni Infantino following reports he's been seeking their support to keep his job. The English and Welsh FAs are boycotting his re-election as FIFA president over his plans to sell stakes in the World Cup to private investors. Donald Trump says talks on the Iran conflict are going on now, warning it's a last chance for them to sign a good document. Speaking in the Oval Office, the US president told reporters they're being held at the request of Tehran, despite their earlier denials. He says he's working towards having the Strait of Hormuz open tomorrow. France is condemning Reform UK's proposal to deploy the Royal Navy in the English Channel as a violation of maritime and international law. The party insists using the service to send migrant boats back is legal. And more weather records have been broken. Last month was the driest July ever in England and Wales. LBC weather, heavy rain moves into the north and west tonight. Thunder in Northern Ireland, then dry with clear spells elsewhere. A low of 10 degrees.
This is LBC.
OK, I want you to close your eyes and think of your car. Now I want you to imagine yourself selling that car and getting a really great price for it. You just got the best offer for your car, like 500,000 other customers. It's not magic, it's motorway. Sell your car for more at motorway.co.uk. 84% of sellers got more than market price for their car, validated against 2 independent sources. Visit motorway.co.uk/claims.
When you're smiling. Banning Dental Group Clinics. With over 5,000 top-rated Google reviews. Keep on smiling.
Here we see a family, completely asleep. No arguing, no bickering, not a peep. Remarkable. When you travel by train with Southeastern, you unlock 2-for-1 entry and great discounts at over 150 attractions across London, Kent and East Sussex, like London Zoo, the Cutty Sark and Dover Castle. Job done with 2-for-1. Terms and conditions apply. Search Southeastern Railway 2-for-1. Buy your train tickets direct and pay no booking fees.
Guys, gals and non-binary pals, we're Copperfield, the UK's only breast cancer awareness charity for young people. We educate people on the signs of breast cancer, as when found early, treatments are more effective and survival rates higher. This is your reminder to check your boobs, chest or pecs. Learn how at copperfield.org.
Leading Britain's conversation, LBC, with Simon Marks.
Just a few more quotes from President Donald Trump, who, as you know, has been speaking at the White House about the situation in Iran. He says, "We will find out today or tomorrow. The talks," he says, "are going to go quickly, one way or the other. It's not very complex," he says. "We're talking about the strait, the opening of the strait, having it open literally by tomorrow, completely open." The idea that it's not a very complex discussion, I think, really flies in the face of reality. But we'll come back to it in 24 hours and see if the strait is miraculously open. We're going to come back to your calls about policing in just a moment. But first, blimey, it was warm out there again today, at least here in London. I clambered aboard the upper deck of a bus and thought I was going to be roasted by the time I got to LBC here in Leicester Square. It became official today that in England and Wales we have just wrapped up the driest July since records began, and you will be aware that a drought has now been officially declared across more than half of England and the whole of Wales. So a little bit earlier tonight I spoke to Joe Wheeler, meteorologist at Square Raindrop, which looks at the science of meteorology and converts it into plain English for all the rest of us. And I started by asking her, when are we going to see some relief from all of this? How long will it be before it rains?
In some parts of the country, it is raining. We will see a fair amount of rain in the north and the west over the next few days. Unfortunately, very little of it will come south. And at this stage in the game, parts of the south and the east have seen little, if nothing, of their summer rainfall. Depends, obviously, the period you look at and the areas that you're looking at, but really, the amount of rainfall is inconsequential. And even if we received a month's worth of rain tonight, which isn't going to happen, that would be not enough to replenish the water reserves, because the water tables are now so low. And obviously, you're looking at a lot of agricultural country around that area. The reservoirs are low, the water table is low, the crops are crying out for water. Nothing will be enough. It needs days and days of steady rain, and we're not going to see that.
And there's no indication of that even in a long-range forecast?
The long-range forecast, which, to be fair, is like gazing into a crystal ball. You might as well lick your finger and hold it up, you know. But no, what looks like happening through certainly the first part of August up until about the 19th is that high pressure is loosely in charge. Now, that high pressure changes position. If it's in the west of the country, it's bringing in northwesterly winds, so slightly cooler. If it's down towards the east, well, it's bringing in warmth from the continent. But whichever way you look at it, it's keeping fairly calm and settled weather. So I think parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland, who aren't actually short on rainfall so far, they're not too bad. They will continue to see some wet weather at times, but there is little or nothing coming through to the southeast, and little or nothing for southern areas, southernmost counties and the eastern areas. And to go with that, you've got these temperatures which will fluctuate. You know, over the next couple of days, well, should I say Wednesday, we're likely to see the peak in temperatures for this week. Then things start to drop off. Now, when we talk drop off after we've had these heat waves, we're talking kind of mid-20s. So not far off average for the time of year, but still on the warm side. And then, of course, there's a potential for them to soar again later. So I don't think we've seen the last of the heat waves yet.
I mean, particularly with regards to water supplies, is this year essentially the canary in the coal mine? I mean, the government concedes that by 2055, England faces a shortage of 5 billion litres of water a day. There is a deficit looming in large measure because of climate change. And this almost suggests that, you know, it's upon us right now, never mind 2055.
Well, we have had an extraordinarily long and hot summer. If you compare this one to 1976, and I'm quite sure that many people will.
I remember it well.
Do you really?
I do. It's hard to believe.
Heard tell. You know, then we saw 15 consecutive days at 32 degrees plus. Now, of course, we've got these thresholds for heat wave criteria, and so this is why we've got into a fourth heat wave, because every single time those values drop below, you say that heat wave's over. Let's start another one, but that next one can start the next day. So it sounds dramatic. We've had 4 heat waves this year. In fact, we've had a long hot summer so far. August does look more unsettled. There are areas of low pressure around. There isn't this absolutely dominant high that will not move, but there will not be enough water in that. I was quite surprised to find that reservoir is about 74%, which doesn't sound that high, but it doesn't sound that low either. We have to see what happens through the winters, I think. I mean, there is no doubt the climate is changing, but nature often compensates. If you get a long hot summer, we might get a horrendously wet winter. And of course, we're notoriously bad at actually putting the water where it's needed and saving it. And I think we can start to do that on an independent level as well. You know, we can put a Bowser in the garden, you know, a rubbish bin if there's nothing else, you know, that collects rainwater. So instead of using our hoses or, you know, watering cans, we can take stuff out of the bin.
And you've got a feel for the farmers, Jo.
Absolutely. Well, I live in Lincolnshire, which is a very, very agricultural county. And I know that, you know, when things get really bad, they have license occasionally to take water out of the rivers, you know, but they're running low as well. We did have some wet weather in the early spring, but nobody could have foreseen, you know, as I say, these long-range forecasts are notoriously unreliable. But nobody could have foreseen that it was going to stay so dry and for so long and so hot as well.
That is Jo Wheeler, meteorologist at Square Raindrop, giving us a sense of the outlook for all of us over the course of the next few days and weeks. We got listeners in various pockets of the world texting in and telling us what it's like where they are. Peter has texted in from Perth in Scotland saying it's currently raining and 15 degrees. Roddy has texted in from northern Spain and reports the temperature dropped last week from 42 degrees to 32 degrees, which Roddy describes as a blessed relief. Let's go back to our discussion about policing. Io has called 0345 6060 973 from Romford. Good evening, Io.
Hello, good evening. Right, let me tell you a story. First of all, Chris Phillips, generally, I don't agree with anything he says. But on this, I'm sorry, the guy is right. I have to agree with him. He's right. The police are lazy in some respects. I'm sorry to say that, but they are lazy. I'll tell you a story. My house got broken in the middle of the night between 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. The guy came into my house. He broke through the front door using some sort of tool, and he was in my house for almost an hour.
And Io, you were at home at the time?
Yeah, I was at home. I was asleep. My 1-year-old daughter was asleep in her room right at the top of the house. And he basically was looking for the car keys to steal my brand new Audi, which I just bought, which was on my drive. Luckily, he didn't find the keys because the keys happened to be in my bedroom under my pillow, actually, at the time. And I woke up in the morning, saw the door had been broken into, started looking around, couldn't work out what exactly was going on. And I was like, you know what? Let me check my CCTV. So I checked the CCTV. I see this guy walking around the house. He actually left the house, came back, because he got changed. The police said that is a thing that they do, because if they're going to be there for a long time, someone looks out the window and they say he's wearing XYZ, then he'll go home and change, right? So he first came in a high-vis jacket, then he came back in a tracksuit.
Wait a minute, over what period of time?
Over about an hour and 10 minutes.
He
So
came in, he went home and got changed and came back?
Yes, he did. And he couldn't find the keys, but he took my brand new laptop and he took my phone. And that was his mistake. So he took my phone. So once I realised my phone had gone missing, I did a Find My Phone request, and it was on an estate, which is about 2 miles away from where I live, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So I called the police, I gave them all the CCTV, I explained to them the whole situation. They said, they'll look into it. I called up about a month later to say, any updates, have you arrested anyone or whatever. They told me straight then and there they hadn't looked at the CCTV, they were too busy. That's what they said to me, right? Okay, fine. So I decided to take the footage on my phone, so I downloaded it, put it on my phone, and I went to the estate. First thing I did is I went to the local shop that was on the estate, and I showed it to the guy in the shop, and I could tell straight away he recognised who it was, but he didn't want to get involved. He's like, I don't want to get involved. So I thought, okay, I'm in the right place. So then I went on the estate, and I basically knocked on pretty much every single door. Knocked on every single door, showed them the CCTV, and eventually I was just about to give up, and someone said, I know who that is. He lives here. This is she told me exactly the door he lives in. And then she said, he's also got a garage. I always see these brand new cars going in and out. Oh, I was like, really? Can you show me? She went, took me to the garage. I took a picture of it. I took a picture of all the council CCTV cameras, and I put all of this into an email and I sent it to the police, and he got arrested the next day and he got 4 years in prison. Okay? So if this story even gets worse, because 2 years later or so, this guy was released from prison. I was standing outside my house and some random street kid came up to me and said, I won't say the guy's name, but he said, this person said he wants to have a word with you. And I was thinking, have a word with me? Someone who I've never met before, someone who I don't know, someone who wouldn't even want to have a word with me, right? So the next day, I was in my local subway, and just coincidentally, there was a police officer in front of me. And I basically explained to the police officer what's happened. This guy's been released from prison, and he's sending some, messages to me, like he's going to threaten me. I said, if I see him, I'm going to kill him. That's exactly what I said, right? But it was a figure of speech. Can you believe that the police officer said to me, I'm going to arrest you for threats to kill? Okay? But he didn't actually arrest me at the time. He said, I'm not going to continue this conversation. And he literally walked out of Subway in front of me and just disappeared. And I was walking after him. I was like, where are you going? I'm explaining to you, someone's robbed me. 2 years later, they're sending threats to me. And he went to the police station. I called up my local Romford police station. I explained the situation. In the end, I got an apology from the police. I actually got an official apology from them, yeah? But what I'm trying to say is this. The police sometimes, and I'm not saying all police officers or whatever, there's systems, whatever. If I could find the burglar, right, 3 months, 2 months after it happened, pretty much, right, and I did my investigations and I basically knocked on all the doors and all that sort of stuff, right, why couldn't the police do it?
Well, but Io, the answer to that question is not necessarily as you characterised the police as being lazy. I mean, it is possible they had other more serious crimes that they were investigating.
Maybe.
But their resources have been cut to the bone, and they've got to make really difficult decisions every single day about which case to pursue. It's not necessarily laziness, is it?
Well, it took me 45 minutes to find out where this guy lived 2 weeks after he's left. Even worse, the bank called me to say that someone had handed in my wallet, because he took my wallet as well, right? And as soon as the bank called me, I told them, look, this was in a burglary, don't touch it. There could be fingerprints on it or stuff like that, right? And they said, no worries, we'll put it in a bag and you can come down and get it, right? So I've gone down and get it. I've gone to the police station, give it to them. They said there's no point. They said, even if we caught him, he caught someone with it, right? He could just say he just found it on the floor and that's why his fingerprints were on it or whatever. But I'm like, well, you've got CCTV, you've got a Find My Phone thing, and then if you've got fingerprints, it just adds to the case, doesn't it? It adds to it, right?
I've got two questions for you, Io, and one has come from a listener who wants to know if you've now got a house alarm installed.
I do have a house alarm. I do have a house alarm installed, and actually I had one at the time, but I just didn't turn it on.
Okay, because that's always, I do
turn it on at night.
So now you turn it on at night with the home setting. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then my question for you is, do you still sleep with the car keys under your pillow?
I've got a different car now, which has got all like pin to drive. It's got all sorts of like security features. But to be honest with you, like it psychologically, this is the thing the woman was saying, right? Psychologically, this was damaging for a good few months. I used to. For the first few days, right, I moved my family to go and live somewhere else for like 2-3 days. I thought this guy might come back. I was sleeping at the window. I got a BB gun from my father-in-law at the time, and a baseball bat, because I was thinking this guy's come into my house when my child was sleeping. I felt so guilty, that basically he could have taken my child away, or he could have, done something to my child,
No, I
investigate.
Yeah, I completely understand that sense of vulnerability and the sense of the possible threat that exists. I do think that you took an extraordinary risk in sort of chasing the suspect down yourself, and we've heard from other callers who say that they feel as though they've had to launch their own sort of investigations because they weren't getting assistance from a police force that is definitely challenged in terms of what kind of cases it can take on. Io, thanks very much indeed for sharing all of that with us this evening. Coming up, we're going to talk to someone who thinks that the police actually, in her experience, were very helpful. We'll talk to Vicky in Woolwich in just a moment here on LBC. It's now 11 minutes to 9.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
Crisis with repeated warnings that has been bubbling for some time. People seeking to gain access to whatever part of Europe it might be. Speaking on the White Cliffs of Dover, Andy Burnham said,
Public don't like the idea that the border looks like it's not controlled. We need to bring back that control, but also we need to offer support for people who genuinely need it.
That is utterly vacuous, isn't it? It is just words. Let's get straight to your reaction.
But the border is not in control, and neither is the law in this country.
As far as I'm aware, you've got people in Calais that are handing out leaflets and information to people saying, when you get here, this is what you say, this is what you ask for.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Back tomorrow morning from 7. Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
Go all Irish to France with great low prices. With Irish Ferries, you can for less. Irish Ferries. See travel differently. T's and C's apply.
Oh, I needed this trip. Some me time. Oh, lounging in the sunshine. Reading my book and dipping my toes in the pool. Perfecto.
Oh, sounds lovely. Amalfi Coast, was it?
No, Brockwell Lido, darling.
Unwind by the pool without leaving the city and save a third with Group Save on off-peak journeys. Thameslink Railway, where every stop is a story. Terms apply.
Hi, Mum. Cornwall is absolutely stunning. We love it here. Of course, our Lee thought he was too tough for sun cream and got sunburnt immediately.
Have you put on your sun cream?
Oh, he never learns. On the bright side, children's bus travel is free. So we've been riding him around everywhere to keep this lobster out of the sun. And we found this brilliant beach where we even saw a seal. Miss you tons. Love, Sally.
Enjoy great British summer savings, such as free bus travel for children this August. Funded by the UK government.
Brands that use radio are 49% more likely to get noticed. Amplify your advertising at radiocentre.org, assuming you want to get noticed.
Honestly, I've been putting MTD off. First it was, I'll do it after this job. Then, after some grouting. After sorting the back of the van. After fish fingers and peas. And then I thought, no, just get it done.
Get MTD done simply with Sage for free. Just connect to your bank, we'll sort your transactions, then submit your update to HMRC. Search Sage MTD.
Who could you be with Pension B? I can choose a pension plan that suits me. One simple management fee, no hidden charges. Download the app today. When investing, your money is at risk.
Simon Marks on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Or text 84850, which is what Neil has done from Glasgow. He asks, how many thousands of police hours are being wasted investigating hurt feelings from online tweets, non-crime hate incidents and other warped priorities? When the police have time to waste on this, they definitely have time to investigate actual crimes with actual victims. Let's go to the phone lines. Vicky is in Woolwich. And Vicky, as I predicted before the break, you're going to present a different view on the police and your experience with them. Good evening.
Yes, I am. I find when
you've got an emergency, the police are really good. So I had my phone lost or stolen, whatever we want to say it was. It ended up in probably one of the worst estates in SE18. I went down to retrieve my phone because, like your previous caller, Dennis from Woolwich, I followed where my phone was.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to the flat or whatever it was. It was pretty sketchy, but I went and wasn't getting anywhere with the occupants. So I called the police. And then the police actually went to the flat.
They showed up shortly thereafter. I mean, they came straight to your assistance?
No, not straight to my assistance. I went about 6 p.m. They turned up about midnight.
Okay.
They also didn't have a warrant and couldn't get a warrant to enter the property, which makes sense, by the way. I don't want to waste all public resources. But the reason why I needed my phone was my dad was due to go in a care home in Bradford. The only reason I wasn't in Bradford was because my car had broken down in London. And it was in the BMW garage. So I was delayed. I should have been in Bradford. But I was trying to put my dad into a care home and I was waiting for available rooms. I don't know if anyone's ever been through trying to get your parent in a care home.
No, I know. I know how complicated that is. Absolutely.
It's horrendous.
So what happened? But what happened, Vicky, when the police went to the scene that night?
So they went and they called me from the scene. They told me they could not, obviously, they didn't have a warrant to go in, but there'd been a cause of scene at the house. The next morning, I got at 6 a.m., because you can send messages to your phone.
Mm-hmm.
Please call an alternative number. You've got my phone.
Right.
6 a.m., finally, and it had gone missing at 3 p.m., and it took till 6 a.m., and I got a response saying, "Oh, I've got your phone. I'm an Uber driver, and I didn't realise it was in my car." Now, when I went to the house, the kid that I spoke to, probably about 15, 16, who was really rude to me, by the way, and horrendous, looked the same as the guy, like mirror image of the guy that dropped my phone off.
So what do you think? Do you think that there was just a panic that set in because the police had been round?
Yeah.
But you got it back. And you got it back.
They did that for me. Yeah, no, but because I explained the urgency of the phone.
Yes, I understand.
And they were just like, well, this is a really urgent requirement for somebody. This is a really, difficult time. But they can't do that for everyone.
No, of course not. Absolutely.
But I think the police do, I'm just going to say, the police do, pull their socks up and try and help the public in the best ways that they can, especially in times of difficulty.
Yes, absolutely. Vicky, thank you very much indeed for sharing that perspective with us, which obviously comes from your very specific experience, but a positive experience of policing at a time of emotional need for Vicky there in Woolwich. Let's end the hour by talking to Angela, a first-time caller to LBC from Bedford. Good evening, Angela.
Oh, hi, good evening.
How are you doing tonight?
I'm all right. This is a bit nervous, so go easy.
Oh, it's just you and me, Angela.
Okay.
Tell me your experience.
Well, I mean, I guess my experience with the police is, if you need them, they are typically there. But I think what the Conservative Party are doing, or wanting to increase the level of action regarding, petty crime or theft, is a good idea because it restores the public's confidence, doesn't it? And so, if I've spent my hard-earned money on something, that's quite, important to me or someone in my family, and it gets stolen because someone's obviously, feeling like they want to take it, then I think it is worth. I think, if you can't call the police, who can you call? So I think it's really important that they are taking these crimes seriously because crime's a crime at the end of the day. So
I mean, Angela, lots of our listeners would say that if the Conservatives really wanted to restore public confidence in the police, they wouldn't have reduced the effectiveness of the police force and funding for it during the course of 14 years of Conservative government.
Yeah, sure. But I guess the point is that, if you need policing, at the time of need, then they should be there regardless.
Sure. I mean,
so there's money. Obviously, money is always going to be a factor in terms of funding, certain areas. But you would see, for example, police vans on the side walk, with their speeding cameras up, ready to sort of catch you, if you like, if you going over speed. You would see them driving past on your street, just whether they're finishing a shift or starting, who knows. But the point is that the police are there for a reason, and we shouldn't have to, like the other caller who went through these great lengths to sort of solve his own crime. It's a bit much to hear that members of the public are doing that themselves.
Well, it's absolutely extraordinary. Yeah, absolutely extraordinary. We've heard from 2 or 3 listeners tonight who have gone through those experiences. Angela, thanks very much indeed. Angela, first-time caller to LBC from Bedford. Adrian in Chippenham. I've only got about a minute, but I'd like to squeeze you in. Good evening.
Can you do it in a minute, Simon? Yeah.
Let's try.
Thanks for taking my call. First-time caller. So my girlfriend buys a very expensive e-bike, about £6,000. She doesn't drive. It's her main form of transport. The bike gets stolen. It should have been locked in a metal security shed, but we left it outside, covered, locked to itself. Anyway, we called the local police. They did the usual, took the crime reference number. Then we remembered this bike is expensive. It has a tracker.
Ah.
So our tech-savvy kids got to work. They'd located it 60 miles in Aston in Birmingham. And we told the police in Aston, in the Midlands, can you look into it? They did a drive-by, which was like just a complete token effort. They said, we didn't see anything kind of thing on that street. So, but my girlfriend's got a real indomitable spirit. Come Sunday evening, she's thinking, if I don't go up there to get that bike back, I won't be seeing it again, and that's a lot of money. So before I know it, she's booked a train for her, my son and her son, and booked a Premier Inn. and by Monday morning, she's in the police station with the 2 kids saying, in a very polite way, she's very genteel kind of thing, lovely, in a polite way saying, I'm not leaving till this is solved.
So she forced the issue. So she forced the issue, Adrian, and she got the bike back?
That's one way to say it, yeah. They called her from a shed in Birmingham saying, we can see your bike, but we can't get it for you because we don't have a warrant to search. She said, come on, gave him a bit of encouragement. Before we know it, she heard a bit of a few noises, and the bike was retrieved, and she took the bike back home. On the train. Same evening.
Got it. Adrian, thanks very much indeed for sharing that with us. Adrian in Chippenham suggesting that an indomitable spirit can help you when you're trying to get a crime solved. Thanks for all your calls on that. In the next hour, we're going to talk about schools and what appear to be big changes coming to the curriculum. Education Secretary Lucy Powell says a straitjacket has been forcing schools to focus primarily on academic subjects that are leading to millions of children being branded failure. She says the system must be less single-minded and should offer more technical subjects. If that happens, a greater number of children would be able to realise their potential, she says. Is she right? If you're a parent, a student or a teacher, how would you change the curriculum to give more children more of a chance to succeed?
On your radio, on the LBC app, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 9 o'clock, the US has dismissed reports that Gianni Infantino is seeking support from Donald Trump to save his job. The English, Swedish and Welsh FAs are boycotting his re-election as FIFA president after he tried to sell off stakes in the World Cup. Former FA chief executive Mark Palios says the FA has to work with caution.
They had to be very careful as to what they were going to do, and they weren't isolated. And with all the other teams in UEFA stepping forward and saying they were going to boycott the World Cup, I think that gave them the opportunity to stand up and be counted.
Donald Trump's issued a warning to Iran, saying it's their last chance to sign what he's calling a good document. The US president says talks between the two sides are going on now, despite earlier denials from Tehran. He's called off the planned strikes and says both sides are talking about fully reopening the Strait of Hormuz by tomorrow. The French government says reform UK's plans to deploy the Royal Navy to turn back migrant boats would break maritime and international law. The party insists its idea is the largest military operation in the English Channel since World War II is legal. But former British Naval Commander Tom Sharp is far from convinced.
It's shallow, it's got some good bits, but they're really kind of overwhelmed by the huge holes in the way it's written, the lack of thought on France, the lack of thought on legals. It really kind of, it's a wafer-thin plan.
Provisional statistics show England and Wales saw their driest July on record this year. Much of England's been under a heat health alert today, with temperatures in the southeast topping 35 degrees Celsius. Jo Wheeler is a meteorologist for Square Raindrop. She told LBC although there will be some rain in parts of the country tonight, it won't be enough in the south.
Even if we received a month's worth of rain tonight, which isn't going to happen, that would be not enough to replenish the water reserves, because the water tables are now so low. And obviously you're looking at a lot of agricultural country around that area. The crops are crying out for water. Nothing will be enough.
And Emma Raducanu will miss the US Open, the Grand Slam she won in 2021. The British number one's continuing to recover from a stress fracture in her leg. In the city, the FTSE 100 has closed down 10 points at 10,857. The pound buys $1.34 and €1.16. LBC weather: heavy rain moves into the north and west tonight. Thunder in Northern Ireland, then dry it with clear spells, a low of 10 degrees. Showers and a risk of lightning in Scotland tomorrow. Elsewhere, sunny spells with patchy cloud and scattered showers, highs of 30 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Katie Dartford.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Simon Marks.
And I am in for Ian Dale all this week here on LBC between 7 and 10, Monday through Thursday. And then, of course, Rachel Johnson in this chair on Friday with you for one more hour this evening. And we're going to talk about the first stirrings of what appears to be a determination by the Prime Minister and his government to make radical changes to the curriculum in schools. Lucy Powell, the Education Secretary, warned today that schools are being forced to prioritise academic learning, placing them in what she called a straitjacket that is leaving millions of children to be branded failures again and again. She's going to be taking a fresh look at what subjects are being taught, which seems to be the first move in undoing the reforms that were controversially introduced by Michael Gove when he served as Prime Minister David Cameron's Education Secretary. He shifted the national curriculum towards what he called a knowledge-rich model of education that prioritised factual depth over general skills. Now, the pendulum looks like it is about to swing back, with the Prime Minister particularly proud of the Greater Manchester Baccalaureate, the MBAC, that is an educational and technical skills framework he implemented in Manchester that is designed to help 14 to 19-year-olds emerge from school with more of a chance to go into skilled employment or into apprenticeships. He talked about it last week in one of his social media videos.
I want an education system based on parity between academic and technical. In a fundamental change to the system, I'm announcing new routes for 14-year-olds to get early access to technical education, skills training, work experience, and connections with employers, giving them the knowledge and experience they need to get quality, well-paid jobs where they live. This is just the start of our work to restore opportunity and hope across the country.
So here's the question for you this hour. Do you want an education system based on parity between academic and technical subjects? Because that's what he's talking about. He thinks it is absolutely key to resolving the problem of NEETs, the youngsters not in employment, education or training, and creating a pathway for them to find jobs. But there are voices out there, of course, who argue that the changes signalled today by Lucy Powell run the risk of lowering expectations and could constitute an attack on ambition. What's your view? I had a very classical education, quite literally, Latin and ancient Greek for a while. I can't say the Greek has come in particularly handy, but it was an education rooted in the 3 R's, reading, writing, arithmetic, and the closest any of us back in those days got to technical classes were home economics courses that my school absolutely did not offer. So I can totally understand the desire to give kids more of a chance to succeed and the urgent need to get people off welfare and into work to end this vicious circle of NEETs and their numbers growing. So if curriculum changes can play a role in that, absolutely, why not consider them? But are we running the risk of returning to an era of, say, the old 11 plus, where young children were pushed into two different directions, the university track on the one hand or the technical track on the other, based on preliminary judgments about their capacities that in many cases proved to be way too harsh and limiting? I want to know what you think. If you're a teacher, do you favour the kind of changes Andy Burnham and Lucy Powell appear to be contemplating? If you're a pupil and you've got the permission of your parents or guardian, we'd love to hear from you. What were you studying at school over the last year versus what you might prefer to be studying if the option existed? And if you're a parent, are you in favour of these changes, or do you think they do constitute an attack on ambition? You can call me at 0345 6060 973, same number for WhatsApp as it is for the phones. You can also text me at 84850. We're going to start this hour by talking to Tom Richmond, an education policy analyst, a former teacher and former advisor to education ministers. Tom Richmond is the host of the Inside Your Ed podcast. And Mr. Richmond, I'm very grateful to you for being with us on LBC tonight. I mean, you heard there Andy Burnham talking about an education system based on parity between academic and technical subjects. What do you think of that? Good evening.
Good evening. Yes, it is quite clear that when you look at our education system for years, if not decades, it has been dominated by the academic route. So GCSEs or O-levels before them, on to A-levels and on to university. It's a very clear system. I think that's one of the things that people often fail to recognise or really emphasise enough. It's very clear what you need to do if you want to go down that route. But when you look at technical education and vocational courses, it's incredibly fragmented. There's no real line of sight to employment. You don't quite know which course you need to take your next step and get you to where you want to go after school or college. And that's where the MBAC that you just mentioned, Andy Burnham's experiment really in Manchester, was all about trying to build a really clear line of sight for people who don't want to go down that university route. And it looks like he wants to expand that right across the country now, so that you give everyone, regardless of what route they want to go down, give everyone clarity about how they actually get there.
Tom, can you explain for people who are unfamiliar with the MBAC, how does it work and what kind of impact has it had in Manchester? I know Andy Burnham claims that it's been a huge success, but do those claims stand up to scrutiny?
Well, it's relatively new. I think it's only been going for a couple of years in practice now, but it is certainly something very different from what we've seen in the past. So despite it sounding like a baccalaureate, it's actually not a qualification. It's just a framework, as you rightly described it, where a pupil will choose one of 7 different gateways or pathways, something like digital or health or construction, and that would then be laid out for them. So once they do something alongside their GCSEs, they then know after age 16, if I want to go in construction, this is my next qualification. If I want to go into that after age 18, here's my next one. So it's only 2 or 3 years old. He has managed to generate a lot of employer interest, which is a really good thing. One of the things we have struggled with for decades in this country is bringing schools and colleges and employers closer together. So that has been some early signs of success, more work placements, more work experience. But at the moment, it's still relatively new, but he obviously likes the model. He thinks this could be applied all over the country, which I think is potentially quite exciting in terms of getting employers more engaged with what's happening in schools and colleges.
So do you think this could be, I mean, I don't want to call it, the sort of the magic bullet, but do you think that this could play a positive role in reducing the number of NEETs, the whole sort of nature of the NEET experience, which we know for many young people is a deeply distressing and depressing experience?
Yeah, it really is. And it also has a very long scarring effects, as we call it. So young people who struggle to get that first job, who struggle to make that transition into employment after they leave school or college, the effects of that struggle can actually last for years. So it is very important we intervene early to make sure that pupils do make a successful transition from education to employment. This kind of model of bringing employers closer to schools and colleges, getting them offering more work experience, more work placements, that could absolutely absolutely help bridge that gap from education to employment. There will, of course, be a challenge around, can you get enough employers? We already know with qualifications such as T-levels, these are existing technical qualifications which have a compulsory work placement. It has been a struggle to get enough employers all around the country to offer enough placements to satisfy demand. That's definitely going to be one of the biggest challenges going forward if you like this MBAC kind of model. But at the very least, he started the conversation. The previous government didn't really make any progress here, and they really prioritised academic subjects above everything else. So he's clearly trying to tilt the system in a different direction.
I mean, this is definitely something that the Prime Minister feels passionately about. In that social media video that we played you an excerpt of at the start of the programme, you know, he's seen at the beginning of that video holding a traditional academic mortarboard, you know, the hat that everybody wears when they graduate, and says that this used to be what education was all about, but now, and then someone chucks him a hard hat. I want to make it about the hard hat. I want to bring about that parity that he spoke about. Can I put to you what Baroness Spielman, the former head of Ofsted and a Conservative peer, said today? She says Labour risks creating a false choice between academic and technical education. And she says that European countries, most admired for their vocational systems, have not given up on the academic side. I mean, I don't think Andy Burnham's talking about giving up on the academic side, is he?
I don't think he is, no. He is absolutely talking about trying to make sure that technical and vocational education is respected in a way that it just hasn't been in the past. And to be fair, we have had a lot of failed experiments with technical education in this country, which really has set the whole course back many years. I'm sure you and some of your listeners will remember GMVQs. We've had 14 to 19 diplomas under the last Labour government, which cost £300 million and then was scrapped. We've had vocational GCSEs, vocational A-levels. It really is just a graveyard of acronyms and initiatives that have ultimately failed. And so it's going to be a big job to make sure that this time is different. But at the very least, he said, this is a priority for me. He is going to put a lot of effort into it. Lucy Powell, the Education Secretary, has clearly been tasked with making this happen. It's not going to happen overnight, obviously. This is a several-year experiment at the very least. But I'm just glad he started a conversation because it just wasn't happening enough under the last government.
And how do you avoid the fear that I know some families have, that children at too early an age are going to be classified either sufficiently academic to head off down that mortarboard route or insufficiently academic and therefore streamed off with a future in technical trades, apprenticeships and the like? How do you avoid making those judgments too rashly?
Yeah, I don't want to go back to some, 11 plus system where you just put into sheeps and goats, you're divided, and then you never look back and you're pushed down a certain route. I don't think that's healthy. I don't think that really supports people's aspirations. I don't think it supports families' aspirations. It'll be great to hear from some parents in your shows about sort of what they're really looking for. So it is a difficult balancing act. In the past, I think it has been too easy to end up in a situation where we have academic for the kids who can and vocational for the kids who can't. And if you end up in that situation, that's really damaging to the respect and esteem of technical education. So if the Prime Minister, I'm glad he does, as he wants to improve the esteem in which technical education is held, he has to avoid a situation in which vocational and technical education becomes a dumping ground just for kids who aren't doing very well in their other subjects. You need to design it in a way that people see it as an aspirational choice leading to good jobs and good careers. And if you can do that, wow, that really could be transformative.
Tom Richmond, thank you so much for being on the programme tonight. Education policy analyst and a former teacher and former advisor to education ministers. He's also the host of the Inside Your Ed podcast. So now it is over to you. What do you make of this ambition of attaining parity between academic and technical subjects? How much is your family rethinking what education can and should be all about? at a time of tremendous uncertainty about the future of the economy, with the role that artificial intelligence is already playing in replacing some employment opportunities, but also creating others. Do you back what are nascent plans that Andy Burnham and Lucy Powell clearly have to shake up the educational system? And I'm particularly interested, if you're a teacher, as Tom Richmond was suggesting, what's your experience been like in schools recently? What do you think about these proposals? And if you're listening to us in Manchester and you've got personal experience of the MBAC, I'd really like to hear about that. You can call us at 0345 6060 973, text 84850. The time is exactly 18 minutes past 9.
Ben Kentish from 10 p.m.
Oh la la! Fury from France today after Nigel Farage says he'd send in the British Navy to stop the small boats. Is that a serious solution? Plus, Jeremy Clarkson demands a thank you letter from benefit claimants. We'll take your calls on that. And Ariana Grande says she's taking a step back from performing because of the abuse she receives. Why do so many people seem to think celebrities are fair game?
Ben Kentish from 10 p.m. Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
When your daughter's wedding guest list is double-sided, enjoy every hand-clapping second of it. Be a step ahead with Barclays Premier, with our best savings rates. Barclays, backing your future. Eligibility criteria apply, T's and C's apply.
Imagine you in a nice comfy seat, with your hands behind your head, taking in the views, instead of taking on the road, maybe even taking a nap. That's the bliss of getting where you need to go without worrying about driving. Book your train journey via avantiwestcoast.co.uk and we'll take you there. Avanti West Coast. Feel good travel.
Ever get giddy renewing your car insurance? Fantasize about finance offers or paying your service bill? Probably not. After all, the best bit about driving a BMW is driving it. So leave the admin and skip to the best bit. Choose a new BMW 1 Series or 2 Series Grand Coupe by the 30th of September to enjoy a year's insurance, 3 years servicing, plus 2.9% APR representative. Search BMW, skip to the best bit. BMW UK Limited is a credit broker, not a lender. BMW Finance, T's and C's apply. Insurance age restrictions and exclusions apply. Whew, that's the admin over with.
This is LBC with Simon Marks.
And now, with a new caller to LBC, it's Iqbal in Birmingham who has called in to talk about Andy Burnham's aspiration to create an education system based on parity between academic and technical subjects. Iqbal, good evening to you. Thanks so much for calling in.
Good evening, Simon. First-time caller.
Well, you're very welcome. We're delighted you're with us.
Big fan of yours with everything you speak about what's going on in the States.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
I've been a teacher for, it's nearly 30 years now, teaching science. And so I've been through the Tony Blair years, education. It's really, really, really important that we get, everyone going to university, 50% of the population, what have you. Then the Tories came in, made sweeping changes over with Michael Gove, which at the time I thought, okay, we need to catch up with Singapore, China, Finland, Norway. I thought, okay.
And Iqbal, I don't mean to interrupt you, but just for listeners who are not familiar, what were those Michael Gove reforms all about?
Okay, so there was a bit of dumbing down in the education system, sort of in the sort of early Labour years, where there was a sort of a reset culture where you can reset exams over and over again, and then students couldn't eventually pass them. More and more students got into university. When Michael Gove came in and completely changed the system from GCSEs, from A star to F, what have you, then to a grade 9 to 1, it became more academic, how it was when I was at school back in the 80s.
More kind of classically academic, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. What the sort of the EBAC is. So, you got to do your sciences, you got to memorize your formulae, you got to that kind of stuff. So it's more heavily knowledge-based, high IQ academic. So you have to have a very high sort of reading age. But when you work in sort of inner-city schools, where half of the students year on year sort of pass, but the other half don't, and you can see the demoralised, they don't pass the GCSEs, but they are very, very capable. They go off to work become entrepreneurs, become very, very successful. Ironically, a lot of them become more successful than the ones that work in academic subjects. But we sort of push these kids down this sort of, you have to go to university, And what's been happening over the last, few years, especially with AI coming and taking up, these entry-level jobs, there's so many young students leaving university can't get these jobs, and it's heartbreaking to see students leaving school. Half of them will pass the GCSE English and Maths and maybe science or what have you. The other half won't, and then where do they go from there? And I've been screaming about this for almost a decade now. I can see it slowly ebbing away and becoming this. It's a national catastrophe that we've got 1 million young people not in education, employment, or training. It's absolutely scandalous.
And 16.2% youth unemployment.
Yeah.
But to what extent then do you think that these and their early stage proposals, we don't know all the details, of course, yet from Andy Burnham and Lucy Powell, are welcome and would address the concerns that you've had?
I've definitely welcomed them. I've been talking about it because, working at school, we just get the constant pressure. It's a pressure cooker at school. Everyone needs to pass their GCSEs, especially with the English and Maths, which I understand. But, it's just everyone needs to get these academic qualifications, the EBAC. They need to, you're trying to get students to do, like, classical languages, like, say, French, for instance, and they're not interested. They can't see what's the point of me learning this. And, I can't get a job, at McDonald's. I've got two sort of teenage boys who, one's at university at the moment, one's at college. He was doing his A-levels. He eventually decided that these A-levels are too difficult for me. I went down the BTEC route, which was a much easier route, which was less academic, but still given the qualifications to get to university. So there's multiple routes. So, there's a million ways to skin a cat. So I think there's different routes to get to where you want to get to. Obviously, certain careers where if you want to get to medicine or dentistry, what have you, then you have to do those classical, like your science at A-levels, what have you. But, not all jobs are that way inclined. At the moment, I'm talking to my daughter who's going to sit her GCSEs, and she's wondering, what should I do? Should I go down the academic route or do I go down the vocational route? She's even thinking, should I become a hairdresser? And with the whole AI taking up all these entry-level jobs, robots will eventually come down the line. Further down the line, but a lot of the skills that students need are, a bit of empathy, having, the communication skills, talking to and building relationships with their clients and customers and things like that, which AI won't be able to do. So those little soft skills aren't taught at school.
Yeah, I actually think, Iqbal, that's one of the hardest conversations that families now have to have. And I'm speaking from the same kind of personal experience that you've just related. When you sit down as a family and parents look at one another and say, well, what kind of advice can we give our children about education and careers? Because the two things obviously go hand in glove, whether you follow a traditional academic or a traditional vocational and technical track. It is so difficult, certainly for people of my age group and my generation, even to imagine what the economy and opportunity is going to look like, never mind in the 2040s and 2050s, but even in the 2030s. And so families do have to be really open, I think, to a whole new way of thinking. And in that regard, Andy Burnham's walking the country down that path, isn't he?
Definitely. And there's always been that sort of snobbiness about, which university do you go to? Do you go to a Russell Group? Do you go to a normal university? Then it's that, that snobbiness, like you must do A-levels. That, I went to university and obviously I'm academically trained, so classically trained. So obviously I just wanted my children to be that way, but now I'm starting to realise actually you work to the skills that you have, you work to your strengths and your passions and what have you. And if it's not academic, then so be it. And there's this huge snobbery around everything has to be academic. When now 50% of people going to university can't even get a job, these entry-level jobs. I've got a brother who's got a law degree. He, works for a call centre because he can't get a job. So it's...
But I do think in some cases it's harder for the parents and the guardians of children to have these conversations than it is for the kids to have them. We've got a listener, Nikki in Tunbridge Wells, who's texted in and says, it's remarkable how many middle-class folk, politicians and even broadcasters insist that other people's children should skip university because too many young people go to university and do vocational courses. Funny how they never seem to recommend the same path for their own little darlings, and so the hypocrisy rolls on. I mean, my view on that is it's not necessarily hypocrisy. It's, in many cases, it's a bit of a fear of the unknown. I mean, we all grew up in a certain system that said, if you want to have a successful career, you go to university. And what Andy Burnham is basically saying is that thinking is outdated, was never actually right in the first place, and that certainly at a time of a rapidly shifting economy with the impact of AI, you've really got to start having a totally different conversation.
I agree with you 100%. I just don't think, like you said, I don't think the education system as it is right now is fit for purpose. And the purpose is to get our young people to grow up to be a part of the workforce. And we have to be pragmatic about how we go about doing this. It's not about just knowledge for knowledge's sake. Memorising an entire, vocabulary or literature or formulae or things like that, they don't actually help you, especially with AI. If AI can do all these things for us, then you don't need to have a huge memory. Most people just, even students now, they're just constantly using AI, ChatGPT, whatever, just to do their homework for them.
Yeah, and not only homework, but also their job applications, which we spoke about on one of my programmes last week here on LBC. Iqbal, thank you so much for calling the programme. I hope you'll call LBC again. A new caller to LBC, a teacher with 3 decades of experience that he was bringing to that call. Jenny has texted in. She says she's an 11-year-old student who just finished year 6. And I have had an education in the US, Hong Kong and South Korea. And I think there should be more about computing, because when I was at school, I was the only one who knew how to use Scratch. And Jenny, I have a confession to make, because when I first looked at your text, I had never heard of Scratch. So I did a very, very fast Google search. And for those of us who are wondering, Scratch is a free visual programming language and online community developed by the MIT Media Lab, where users create their own interactive stories, games, and animations. And those users obviously include Jenny, who texted the programme tonight to share her educational experience, saying there should be more about computing taught in schools. Let me know what you think. You can call me at 0345 6060973. You can text 84850 and join this conversation about the future of the educational curriculum here in the UK. Coming up shortly, we're going to talk about AI in a slightly different way, because it has been revealed that the company that owns the big AI platform Claude, Anthropic, has been buying up old, rare, antiquarian books en masse, millions of them, scanning them into their large language models, so it downloads all the information from those books, and then destroying the books, physically destroying them. We are going to hear more about that coming up. It's Simon Marks in for Ian Dale here on LBC. The time is coming up to 29 minutes to 10 and the news headlines come from Katie Dartford.
Donald Trump's told Iran it's on its last chance to make a peace deal. The US president had earlier called Tehran duplicitous after its foreign ministry denied that talks were taking place. UEFA is threatening FIFA with legal action over its president's failed attempt to sell stakes in its competitions to private investors. The English, Swedish and Welsh FAs have withdrawn their support for Gianni Infantino's re-election next year. And Reform UK and the French government are at odds over whether the party's plans to use the Royal Navy to intercept small boats is legal. Paris says sending migrants back across the Channel would violate its sovereignty. LBC weather, heavy rain moving into the north and west tonight, thunder in Northern Ireland, then dry with clear spells elsewhere, a low overnight of 10 degrees.
This is LBC.
When you're smiling. Banning Dental Group Clinics, with over 5,000 top-rated Google reviews. Keep on smiling.
You want to sit down?
Yeah.
I can confirm that you have won £1 million indeed.
Who wouldn't want to feel that feeling?
Thank you so much.
New Lotto is now making more millionaires.
Oh my God.
And this week, it could be you.
Congratulations.
Lotto from the National Lottery. It could be you. Rules apply. 18 plus.
Up to speed.
Your Formula One podcast. Round 12, we head to the Netherlands for the Dutch Grand Prix.
New episodes every Monday and Thursday on YouTube or Global Player.
Ocado price match your shop to over 10,000 products from Tesco.com, so you can get everything you need for less than you think. Should free up some budget for that emergency tub of ice cream. Ocado, the online supermarket. Max £10 voucher for difference on like-for-like shop. Valid 28 days. Excludes marketplace. Products may vary. Geographical restrictions, min spend and charges apply. Terms at ocado.com/price promise.
A message from TfL for drivers and motorcyclists. Before you turn, look around. Is there a cyclist in your path or approaching behind you? You now need to always let them pass before you turn. Follow the highway code to keep everyone safe. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Simon Marks on LBC. Text 84850.
And we're going to get to more of your calls in a moment about the future of the educational curriculum in the UK. But first, since we are doing an hour on education, I thought we would also talk about books, because I was staggered to learn over the weekend that AI behemoths appear to be vacuuming up thousands and thousands of rare antiquarian books, buying them en masse, removing their spines, scanning them, so basically digesting their content for their artificial intelligence engines to use, and then destroying them. Some rare book dealers say they've had all sorts of unsolicited approaches from odd email addresses that they don't recommend, that they don't recognise, asking them, or recommend for that matter, asking them to provide up to 5,000 books that would then ultimately be destroyed. I mean, first of all, what does this tell us about the Philistines who run the AI companies? But also, what does it tell us about the impact of all of this on society more broadly, and even on the rare book business? I'm joined tonight by Dr. Clarissa Hard, an academic and writer who is a visiting fellow at the University of Oxford's Bodleian Library, who specialises in 20th century English poetry. Dr. Hard, thank you so much indeed for coming on LBC tonight. I could not believe this when I heard about it over the weekend, but it is really happening, right? Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Well, I agree with you, Simon. It's pretty galling to watch this footage. So as you were just saying, the major AI company, Anthropic, drew some criticism over the past week because it's been cannibalizing not just thousands, but millions of print books. As you point out, some of these are rare titles and the last of their kind. And so in scanning them, the hydraulic machine cuts off the spine and puts them into the automatic scanning machine. This is cheaper and efficient than doing it with loving care and scanning it in. So you can see why companies might do this. But it is enough to give a bookworm a nightmare to watch that footage. And then a recycling company comes in and clears everything up.
I mean, this would be like going to the Louvre, removing the Mona Lisa from the wall, pulling it out of its frame, scanning it in, and then destroying the original canvas. I mean, it's not overstating it to say that's what they're doing.
Well, I think some of the books will be at the end of their print run anyway. But of course, Anthropic, as far as we know, is not being discriminating in terms of what it's putting through the machine. And this follows some trouble for Anthropic. So last year, there was a $1.5 billion copyright infringement lawsuit. So it turned out that Anthropic, it wasn't destroying books this time. It was, however, pirating millions of books without the consent of their authors. So now they've progressed from just straightforward digital piracy to the destruction of books, which is legal. They are buying the books. However, I think there's something about the symbolism of watching books be destroyed en masse that has really unsettled a lot of people, and this is why the footage has gone viral on X, on other social media platforms, and of course across different news outlets.
And do you have a sense of why they want these books in their systems? We've got a text in from one of our listeners, Fatima, who asks, are they destroying the books so that they can charge us subscriptions further down the line for access to them? I mean, that's not really the plan, is it?
No. So they're feeding them into large language models, so to train their chatbot, Claude. And I think this is even more egregious than just having a digital copy. I think we do lose something when we go from physical to digital. But in this case, the digital copy, it doesn't really have any importance. It's there as a series of phrases and words to train chatbots to become more sophisticated, and ironically, to help them get rid of AI slop. So you think, well, okay, you're making these machines more sophisticated, but what have you lost in the process? And it's quite worrying to think about where this might go in the future.
And how would you define what we are losing in the process?
Well, obviously, anyone who has stayed up late into the night reading a novel knows that reading isn't just an aesthetic, a mental experience. It's also a physical experience. Books can be cherished objects in their own right, but even if they don't have particular value, they can have sentimental value. You can pass them down from between family members, and you put them back on your bookshelf as a reminder of what you have read, or sometimes what you intend to read in the future. So they make it sounds like a cliche, but I think books really do make a house a home.
Another one of our listeners has texted in. This is from Debbie. She says, as a lover of books, I find what Anthropic is doing morally indefensible. Books are the work of human minds, not raw material to be exploited. It may not be criminal legally, she says, but it feels criminal to anyone who values authors and the written word. Do you agree with her?
I would agree with Debbie completely. I think there's something very cynical and even sinister about reducing literature to a series of data points for a machine. And I think it's touched a nerve with the public. Clearly, there's something very visceral about watching that footage, and I think it flags up our growing sense of unease about our relationship between man and machine going forward.
And I was reading some accounts today of antiquarian booksellers who had received these sort of unsolicited emails from addresses they didn't recognise, names they didn't know, saying that I want to buy up to 5,000 volumes, what can you send me? I mean, is there any sense of a pushback to this coming from the antiquarian book selling fraternity? Because, I mean, while I'm sure they'd love to sell more antiquarian books, it seems to me that when I visit shops that sell those kind of works, the owners invariably are very committed to maintaining those books. They wouldn't want them to be sold off to an outfit that was going to pull the spine off, scan them into a machine and then destroy them.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a coterie of very dedicated bibliophiles who I think feel very protective over these cherished objects, and they value the book as a material object, not just the content of the book, but the way that it's presented too. I mean, I believe that Anthropic is buying from bulk discount outlets. I believe is it Better World. Better Books. So I don't think that they're going to target antiquarian booksellers. However, there's a lot of material floating around out there that will be lost to posterity, very sadly.
And are you worried that, like, really rare publications may end up getting lost as a result of this? You know, the last copy of whatever it happens to be, Shakespeare's First Folio or whatever.
Well, I wouldn't go quite that far. However, we never know. And this is the thing, is that books are constantly turning up in places you least expect them. And then they go online and you realise how valuable and expensive they are. But the history of the book is that a lot of the time they spend their lives on bookshelves where they aren't appreciated, and then they turn up elsewhere. And so I think we must be very, very cautious about what we're putting literally through a machine.
Well, I know they are appreciated at the Bodleian Library at the University of Oxford. Dr. Hard, thank you so much indeed for joining us tonight. Academic and writer and visiting fellow at the Bodleian Library, specialising in 20th century English poetry. What an absolutely extraordinary story. Complete Philistines. Let's get back to our conversation about the future of education in the UK under Andy Burnham's government. Steve is in Kingsbury in North London. Evening, Steve.
Evening, Simon. How are you doing?
I'm all right, thanks. How are you tonight?
Oh, busy programme.
It is.
Well, right. So let's your previous hour about Trump and your previous hour subjects I could have talked about as well, but here we are.
Well, we're glad we're glad to have you on talking about the future of school curricula.
Let me put it this way, from my own experience, and I'm sure other listeners will have something similar. I was at school in the 1980s. At that point, it was still the theory that you were either mathematical or linguistic, and the teachers paid no attention to any other possible skills you may or may not have. I wasn't very good at many things. I was naff at woodwork and metalwork, always chipping my fingers and cutting my fingers with the instruments and stuff. I wasn't very practical. But I had a friend, when I was at school, I had a friend of mine with as an example, with the exception of being able to lift an engine out of a car, put it on a mounting block, and this kid, I've long since lost contact with him, so I don't know if he still does it. He could strip an engine down with a little bit of adult assistance, take the engine apart, understand all the components, rebuild it, get the adult with the crane to put it back in. It sounded better and it worked better than before he started. And that was like a natural skill. I think his uncle was a bit of a dab-hand mechanic on the side. I have friends of mine. See what education seems to miss. Tony Blair's education mantra from 20, 30 years ago about getting more people into university is structurally flawed because not everybody is academic. I'm not academic. I worked in computing and audiovisual for a long time. I loathe the office o'clock thing now, and most academic qualifications lead you to an office hours, school hours type thing, and most people loathe it. Now, if they spotted, like, artistic skills, woodwork, metalwork, for example, mechanics, music and art, see, the most essential two GCSEs that all the school children should get at age 15, 16, 17, or whatever age it is, should be English and maths. After that, if they do some sort of combination diploma for other skills, then that should be acceptable. I mean, the government is saying we want to build so many 100,000 houses over the next
absolutely
many years.
Absolutely, and you're going to need the skills to build them.
We need plumbers.
Absolutely.
We need electricians. We need brickies. We need other skills I haven't listed, all of which are relevant.
Absolutely.
Now, if they're pushing everybody to, well, go to university and do a degree, which might be useful, but mostly probably isn't. Your obvious half a dozen are architecture, medicine, various law.
Yeah, and there's nothing inherently wrong, obviously, about going to university and studying those things. And many of those, architecture, for example, are clearly going to need architects to design all of these homes that the country wants to build. But I absolutely agree with you, Steve, about this notion that if you want the economy to grow, you've got to deliver the skills into the economy and take advantage of people's natural aptitude, like the former pupil of yours, the former friend of yours at school that you were just relating. Steve, thanks very much indeed for contributing to the programme tonight. Taff in Cardiff Bay has texted in to say, I am horrified to hear about the books being destroyed. My first horrifying thought was of the terrible book burnings by the Nazis. Please don't think that I'm comparing the two. It was just the first thing that flashed into my mind. Utterly unforgivable. on both occasions. More of your calls on the future of education under Andy Burnham and Lucy Powell as they draw up these plans to change the national curriculum. You can call me at 0345 6060 973, text 84850. It's now 13 minutes to 10.
Coming up at 10 on LBC, Ben Kentish.
Nigel Farage wants to send in the Navy to stop the small boats. Is that a serious solution or a sign that Farage isn't a serious politician? Plus, the proposal for benefit claimants to write thank you letters to taxpayers.
Ben Kentish at 10. Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
Pick up more sun cream. Impromptu picnic. Late night cinema trip. Do more this summer. Hop on and off with the Weekend Hopper. Get unlimited weekend bus and tram journeys for £1.75 per day every Saturday and Sunday from the 25th of July. Plan your journey with the TfL Go app. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters. Offer valid from 4:30am on the 25th of July until 23:59 Monday the 31st of August. Always use the same card or device when touching in. For more information, search TfL Hopper.
A red light becomes a moment to breathe. A coffee run, a kick of momentum. A wrong turn turns into an adventure, while a song becomes your soundtrack. From the driver's seat of an LBX, even the most ordinary of days can feel that little bit extra. The award-winning Lexus LBX self-charging hybrid. Find the extraordinary in the everyday.
Shots from halfway causing goalkeeping howlers. Roofs badly leaking from sudden rain showers. Saturday hackers and onion sizzling. These are a few of our favourite things. When you're singing, yet not winning. When your bet's gone bad. We simply remember our favourite things. And then we'll feel so glad.
For all your favourite things, visit BetVictor. 18 plus gambleaware.org. Please gamble responsibly.
Honestly, I've been putting MTD off. First it was, I'll do it after this job. Then, after some grouting. After sorting the back of the van. After fish fingers and peas. And then I thought, no, just get it done.
Get MTD done simply with Sage for free. Just connect to your bank, we'll sort your transactions, then submit your update to HMRC. Search Sage MTD.
Simon Marks on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Now, I'm going to lift the lid on how we do some of the things technically here, because a few moments ago I read out a text from an 11-year-old whose name I thought was Jenny, because when I look at the texts, I can see, in most cases, the name of the person associated with the phone who's texting in. So I saw Jenny, and it went on to say I'm an 11-year-old who's been educated in various places and had views about the future of education. Well, it turns out that Jenny is the mum of the 11-year-old, and the 11-year-old is Jay, who is on the line now. We managed to get Jay on the phone. Jay, I apologise for calling you Jenny, but I do want to hear your view about the future of education here in the UK, and you've got a view that is sort of rooted in this amazing international experience that you've had, haven't you? Good evening.
Good evening. So I think that there should be more like digital learning in the curriculum. So when I lived in Hong Kong, there was lots of things were digital based, and all of my classmates picked up like technology passively, and I think that would be helpful in the future.
When you say they picked up technology passively, you mean it was not sort of a formal part of the educational process, but because you and your generation are so immersed in everything digital that it just comes naturally to you?
Yeah. So laptops were used for like kind of like a learning tool, I could say. Mm-hmm. We were assigned homework with them, and sometimes in class we were given tasks to do.
And Jade, talk to me a little bit. You mentioned in your text, I think, something called Scratch, which I had to go and look up because I have to say I hadn't heard of it. But can you explain to people what it is and what you do with it and why you think that's useful?
So Scratch is like simple programming. It uses blocks instead of like text, and so when I did it in my class in the UK, I was one of the only kids who knew how to use it. And then sometimes even the teacher had to ask me to help her.
Amazing. And what do you think it's taught you?
I think Scratch is a good start for learning programming. Yeah. Yeah.
And when you grow up, do you what kind of work do you know what kind of work you would like to be doing? Do you think all of this is going to be useful in terms of whatever choices you make going forwards?
Yeah, I think I'll become something to do with programming, like a programmer.
Well, it sounds to me, Jay, like you've made a very, very good start. What are you looking forward to about the new school year? Because obviously you'll be on holiday at the moment, but when you go back to school in September, what are you looking forward to?
I'm not actually going to be in the UK for year 7 because I'm actually moving back to Hong Kong.
Okay, and then so what are you looking forward to when you get to Hong Kong and going back to school there?
I'm looking forward to like more technology and like more learning involving technology.
Well, I think you are on an amazingly positive path, Jay, and so do many of our listeners. Another listener, also called Jay, has said you, Jay, are such a brilliant caller. We need more kids like this in the world. When he gets to our age, I'm confident that the world would be a better place. So you've certainly impressed many of our listeners tonight, Jay. I wish you the very best of luck and thank you so much for calling in, and I apologise again for calling you Jenny earlier. Say thanks to your mum.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Good night. That's Jay from Wimbledon, soon to be heading back to Hong Kong. But what a lovely call to be able to take. Let's go to Angela in Carmarthen in South Wales. Evening, Angela.
Oh, evening. Thanks for taking my call. I really wanted to echo, well done. I can't remember the person who just called, but yeah, that was really good.
Jay. Yeah.
I can't obviously comment on that because I don't know enough, but it does sound like there is certainly a place that needs to be, but to be careful that it doesn't become just that. Because I think the point I wanted to make was somebody talked earlier about the technical side of things. We have such a shortage of electricians and plumbers and even solar energy. And, you know, I don't think it would be that difficult, but rather than getting young people and on universal credit to the sole traders and the SMEs, they could pay that universal credit so the company doesn't have to pay for the apprentice, and do that for at least until they're semi-qualified so they don't drain the business overheads. And then, you know, before you know it, they're in work. They're not sitting at home playing video games and claiming benefits.
So you think that this approach by Andy Burnham stands a chance of being an answer, not necessarily the answer, but an answer to this whole concept of NEETs, people who are not in employment, education or training, and it could indeed push them down a path of finding a way of contributing to society and getting employment?
Absolutely. I mean, there are many people even today I was listening once to a program on LBC where there are people in finance and marketing that are actually wanting to get into, you know, plumbing or electrician, and they're struggling to even get a place in college to train for it. So there's a problem here. We don't have enough of these qualified people, and yet we don't have a way to get them trained either. So, and yet we've got lots of people unemployed. I mean, there's something amiss. We're not having the education system's not suited to what we need in our country.
And Angela, can I ask you a question? I was asking this last week about some other issues, but it's extraordinary that this wasn't addressed before. I mean, how is it possible that Sir Keir Starmer didn't address this, but Andy Burnham can? That's just bizarre, isn't it?
It's beyond. I mean, I've always been thinking, what is going on? Why do we keep making the same mistake, year on year on year? It's the people that go to university don't get a job. They don't even pay off the loan. I don't know what the percentage of, but I'm sure it's quite high. So, and it's just ridiculous. And how are they going? What about the pensions when they're later on? It's such a drain.
Absolutely. Angela, thanks very much indeed.
Anyway, yes,
thanks so much for calling in. Really appreciate your input. Let's finish tonight with Greg, a first-time caller to LBC from Mansfield. Good evening, Greg. What would you like to say?
Good evening. Yes, so obviously I've been listening to the conversation regarding Andy Burnham and the reforms when it comes to education. So my role is within employer engagement and getting young people into education by apprenticeships. So I speak to a lot of employers on a daily basis about opportunities within the business. So there's a stigma as well with regards to apprenticeships where it's at lower levels, which, yes, it is a start off into employment for lower levels, but also they go up to level 7. So there's no reason why somebody within HR or somewhere like that wouldn't consider doing a higher level whilst they've been within employment for many years as well, to upskill themselves and to get that education through the apprenticeship scheme.
And I think they're essentially about almost to be forced to by Andy Burnham, certainly to be encouraged to, and that's a huge difference, right, Greg?
I don't think they're being forced to. You don't have
certainly
to.
They're going to be encouraged to.
What, young people or people within work are you talking about?
The people offering apprenticeships are going to be encouraged to offer more of them.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, definitely. I think it's a very valid route to go down. And,
absolutely.
I work with a lot of multinational companies, and the amount of school leavers or college leavers that will get an apprenticeship over a university leaver is substantially greater numbers than you probably think. In my honest opinion.
OK, Greg, thanks very much indeed for calling LBC for the first time, but hopefully not the last, and I'm sure this will not be the last time that we talk about the future of the educational curriculum. Thanks to all of you for all your calls and texts and messages tonight. I'm back tomorrow evening from 7. If you missed any of today's show, you can listen back on our free Global Player app or the LBC app. You can download the LBC app for free from your app store now. Coming up at 1 on LBC, it's Richard Spur, but now, Ben Kentish.
Simon, thank you very, very much indeed. Hello there, and a very good Monday evening to you. Welcome to Late Nights with Ben Kentish here on LBC. Coming up.
I am entirely confident that under a reform government, within a fortnight, there would be no more boats.
Nigel Farage reckons he'd stop the small boat crossings completely in 2 weeks if he was Prime Minister. How, you may well